This is the April 6th meeting of the Concord Select Board. I see everyone is here. Thanks for bearing with us as we got our technology straightened out. We're going to begin this evening with public comments. I wanted to make a brief comment just ahead of that, and it has to do with public discourse and civility in our community. I'd like to remind members of the public that anonymous comments and allegations directed at officials are not helpful and should be considered with skepticism. As a community, we can act on information for which we know the source so as to verify it. Anonymous allegations cannot be treated with the same level of effort, as the motivations of such communications can sometimes be simply to consume resources unnecessarily. The public is encouraged to either write to the board or the town manager, or appear at a meeting like this one and raise any concerns they may have. If a matter is particularly sensitive, a confidential report can be received by contacting a board member or the town manager or another appropriate official. The distinction between confidentiality and anonymity is significant, and I encourage everybody to be mindful of that. Thank you. With that, we'll receive public comments. We'll take them for about 15 minutes. We have a very long agenda today, so you may speak for up to 3 minutes. But if you see there are others, please keep that in mind. Do I have any public comments from anybody here in the room? Jim, why don't you go ahead? Just come close to this chair. So we're speaking into the owl, which is this thing in the middle of the room here.
Great, thank you, Mark. So my name is Jim Smith. I live at 14 Edmonds Road. I'm a member of the Natural Resources Commission, and I'm speaking on behalf of the NRC. As many of you are aware, the website has been created, to my knowledge, anonymously and widely circulated that attacks several decisions of the NRC and makes personal attacks on our Director of Natural Resources, Delia Kay. The website contains many misstatements, falsehoods, and fabrications. As such, it does not serve the community or the marketplace of ideas. Delia has served this town with distinction for 20 years, and neither she nor any public official of the town, paid or unpaid, should be the subject of unfounded personal attacks on their judgment or integrity. The NRC is in full support of Delia and wants to convey its appreciation for her efforts on behalf of the town. On a personal note here, for 30 of the last 40 years, I've had the honor of serving this town as a member and sometimes chair of 5 committees and as assistant moderator. The history and tradition of public discourse in this town, in my experience, is one of robust discussion and sometimes strong disagreement. But discussion that encourages civility and eschews personal attacks. I am saddened, as Mark indicated, to think that this current means of engagement, our means of engagement in terms of robust discussion and civility, which is, I think, a true strength of the town, is under attack by websites and other communications, such as the one which seek to tear down rather than build our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. No one else? Jeff?
Thanks. I'll be brief, sticking with the same topic though, but representing about 92 community members who have signed on to stating you received a letter from me individually. This is representing, as I said, a long and growing list of folks who in 4 days said, please speak up for us on this. We're writing to express deep concern about bullying behavior exhibited in the website, which was created expressly to target Director of Natural Resources, Delia Kay, and was widely distributed last week. The creators of this website went to considerable lengths to mask their names while attributing it to something called Concord for Transparency. URL was sent unsolicited to countless citizens, businesses, and others via anonymous text. Delia Kay carries out her role with impeccable integrity and with the best interests of the town consistently at heart, but that shouldn't matter. This targeting of any town employee or community member should be highly offensive to any reasonable person. We as a community have witnessed this sort of bullying behavior before, most recently against School Superintendent Lori Hunter in a well-documented series of incidents, and now it is happening to Ms. Kay. It is important to note that this is the latest attack against a female leader in a town that prides itself on civil discourse and equality. Make no mistake, this is bullying, harassing, and defamatory behavior. We teach our children in school assemblies never to stand by and allow bullies to do their harmful work. Therefore, we're asking that the select board and town manager stand up for one of your own and take whatever action is needed to defend the civil servant trying to serve the citizens of Concord. And we call on all Concord residents who value talented town staff and civil discourse to contact the select board, share your thoughts on the bridge, and tell the bullies that this behavior is unacceptable in our community. We're all poorer for this kind of bad behavior, and we'd be worse still if it goes unaddressed. So please, among the busy schedule, spend time and resources to address this to the fullest. And I'm happy to share these signatures.
Thank you, Jeff. Matt?
Appreciate the chair's opening comments and hope that they represent the full board. Good evening, my name is Ned Perry and I live at 362 Bedford Street. This evening I am here in person to express my concerns about a present or former resident of Concord who has published a website that far exceeds the decency and civility we expect and rely on in our public discourse in our Concord community. The website is a direct attack on one of our longtime professional division heads who has served for 20 years in the important role as Director of Natural Resources. The website is what appears to be a part of a deliberate planned campaign to discredit the director and disrupt her performance of her jobs and behavior and on our behalf. The campaign has included a large number of negative emails in the same vein to town officials. While citizens have certain rights to free speech and may generally broadly attack those of us who have been or are serving in elected positions, those rights do not extend to the making of vicious personal attacks on public servants merely carrying out the professional functions they have been appointed to do for our town. While town moderator, I have the legal authority to have police removed from the town meeting and any citizen who is disrupting the dialogue with attacks on other speakers or on town employees. You, the select board, nor the town manager do not have the same powers relating to citizens of our Concord community. However, you do have the duty and responsibility to support and defend our town employees from this kind of personal attack for doing their professional work for our town. I strongly urge the town to do all its powers to stand behind our director and protect her to the fullest extent possible from injuries that the creators of this campaign seek to inflict on her. It is my hope and recommendation that the select board will meet in executive session with the town manager this evening to discuss steps that have been taken and may be taken in the future if this offensive website is not removed and taken down. Should that option not be practical, then it is further my recommendation that if the website is not removed and taken down by the end of the day on Wednesday, April 8th, the select board schedule for their next meeting on April 13th, an executive session with town council to discuss steps that may be taken to have the offending website taken down and to have the responsible individual or individuals identified and held responsible for their slanderous actions. This is not a simple matter of this First Amendment rights, but goes to the heart of our Concord community. We are here, who we are, how we conduct ourselves and our town business, and how we treat our dedicated professional employees who have committed their careers to serving Concord. Thank you for the time to address you this evening.
Thank you, Nate. Anyone else?
Don Villadine, 37 Concord Street. And the ideology of Jewish supremacy, which has become dominant in the government of Israel, is reminiscent of the Nazi race theory. Those aren't my words, are not the words of a violent jihadist, the words of Netanyahu's former defense minister, Moshe Ya'alon, responding to reports of ethnic cleansing in the West Bank in January this year. Like many people, I'm personally not a fan of Nazi comparisons. They're often deployed in lazy or crude ways to dehumanize people. But as the Israeli government becomes increasingly extreme in its ideology and violent actions, many people in Israel and worldwide feel that comparing the Israeli government to Nazis is not only justified, but it's obvious and necessary. In this context, it would be absurd to assert that any Concord resident, student, or employee should be placed under any kind of suspicion of anti-Semitism merely for making this same comparison. The IRA definitions Israel-centric examples, including number 10, drawing comparisons of contemporary Israeli policy led by the Nazis, might seem peripheral to the text as a whole, but they're central to its purpose. As the ACLU wrote in a letter to the American Bar Association in 2023, quote, "In practice, the IRA definition has been used consistently and nearly exclusively, not to fight anti-Semitism, but to defend Israel and harm Palestinians," end quote. The recent ADL complaint against the school district alleges forms of bullying that all of us, I think, can agree are shocking and anti-Semitic, including slurs and Holocaust taunts. But the alleged failure of the administrative staff of the schools, according to the complaint, was not definition of anti-Semitism at all, but assessment of its severity, which resulted in dismissal of this abuse as microaggressions. The IRA definition does not help here at all. On the contrary, as many have argued, by placing bona fide criticisms of Israel alongside Holocaust denial, it devalues the label of anti-Semitic and actually encourages trivialization of anti-Semitism. What the ADL are demanding, that the Trump administration coerce our school district to adopt the IRA definition as a speech code for students and staff, would be an obvious violation of the First Amendment and set a dangerous standard in the state of Massachusetts. In this context, the responsible thing for this board to do is to avoid any kind of endorsement of the IRA definition at all, short or long, soft or hard. Even if you think you only reference a vague two-sentence definition, that's likely to be misrepresented and leveraged to push for further adoptions outside of this town and inside of this town. And you should know this is already happening, and I can send you some details. I don't know the sincerity of select board members when you say you're trying to do the right thing here, but sometimes doing the right thing means not only explaining your actions, but correcting them. So I'm asking you to please amend your January 27th proclamation to explicitly reject the IRA definitions examples or drop the IRA definition entirely.
Thank you.
Wendy Holt, 30 Dover Street.
Speak up a little bit so that people can hear you.
Wendy Holt, 30 Dover Street.
Thank you.
I commend the board for enacting a town proclamation denouncing anti-Semitism and for promptly addressing the inadvertent violations to open meeting law, and for your willingness to clarify the adoption of the IRA working definition of anti-Semitism. I am here to urge the board to amend the proclamation's definition of anti-Semitism by specifying that it does not include the IRA examples. It is important that this amendment be in the form of a revised proclamation, not just in meeting notes, so that this modification is not overlooked in the future. We in Concord are prone to think that our discussions are always reasonable, rational, and free of bias. We've had a difficult wake-up call with the ADL's complaint on anti-Semitism in the schools. We also need to be aware that Palestinian, Arab, and Muslim community members and allies have frequently been silenced or accused of anti-Semitism when attempting to speak about Palestinian human rights and history. Thus, this request to modify the proclamation is not simply a request for politically correct wording. Rather, it is an imperative for creating boundaries that allow all Concord community members the right to free speech. The Massachusetts Special Commission on Anti-Semitism clearly addressed this challenge, stating in its preliminary findings, the Special Commission reiterates here, as the commissioners have done publicly throughout the 9 public meetings held thus far, that criticisms of Israel's government, even harsh and uncomfortable criticism of Israel's government, cannot be regarded as anti-Semitic in and of itself. Finally, I want to bring the board's attention to the Jerusalem Declaration on Anti-Semitism, which was developed by a broad group of scholars in Holocaust history, Jewish studies, and Middle East studies, specifically to address challenges that have arisen in applying the IRA definition and examples. The declaration defines anti-Semitism as discrimination, prejudice, hostility, or violence against Jews as Jews or Jewish institutions as Jewish. And it provides examples, including criticism of acts of the government of Israel, both those that are and those that are not anti-Semitic. In my opinion, the Jerusalem Declaration provides clear guidance that safeguards free speech and would be an important resource for Concordians seeking to address anti-Semitism. I request that the select board review this document and promote it to the community members. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Deb?
Good evening, Deborah Dorfman, 27 Lang Street. Recently, I was provided with a copy of an email that select board member Cameron McKenna sent to what appears to be a listserv in which he airs several grievances against the town. In part, he does other things, including with respect to the development of a bias and hate reporting system. Specifically in his email, as is relevant to this, he states, we cannot ignore the current facts. For example, implementing a town internal quote, hate and bias reporting system, internal unquote, where someone will come tell you how you misbehaved / made someone uncomfortable and how you need to behave differently while opposing a Revolutionary War monument for those who died in battle, including people of color. In his email, not only does Mr. McKenna mock the work being done by the bias and hate reporting system work group to develop a proposed reporting system and to value the experiences of bias and hate that people have encountered in Concord, he also mischaracterizes the purpose of the bias and hate reporting system. He also erroneously ties the creation of a reporting system to opposition of to building a Revolutionary War memorial, when really the two matters plainly have nothing to do with each other. On August 11th, 2025, the select board, including Mr. McKenna, unanimously approved a motion adopting a plan with the purpose of, quote, developing and deploying a hate incident reporting system. And contrary to Mr. McKenna's assertions in his email, the stated purpose of the proposed bias and hate reporting system as set forth in the town's official charge, which was approved again by this board, is the following, and I quote, to improve the town's ability to receive reports, document incidents, communicate with the public, and respond to anti-Semitism and other bias and hate incidents. The goal of this effort is to raise the visibility and improve awareness of the community of these incidents. Its focus is to ensure that residents have a clear, safe, accessible way to report incidents and that the town have an effective way to track and report these incidents, and by doing so, collect and use reliable data to inform the community, facilitate accountability, and guide the town. Guide community response, unquote. And that comes directly from the charge that was passed by this board. So clearly nothing in the charge, which clearly describes the purpose, includes any suggestion that Concord intends to create a 1984 style dystopia suggestion, where Big Brother goes around rapping on people's doors and knuckles to punish bad behavior. I asked Mr. McKenna to please correct his statement, but he declined. So therefore, now I have done so. I hope that the public is clear about the purpose of the town and bias hate incident reporting system and will not be misled by Mr. McKenna's inaccurate portrayal. While Mr. McKenna is certainly free to have his own opinions and express them, and I support that wholeheartedly, as a Concord resident, taxpayer, as well as an active community volunteer on the work group, I object to a select board member actively undermining the work of citizen volunteers who are simply trying to do what we've been charged to do. And also, I really am disappointed in the statements because really they're misleading and can lead to baseless fostering of divisions, fear, and mistrust. So thank you for your time.
Okay. We are about out of time. Don't see any other hands, so gonna go with that. We're gonna move to the consent agenda. AJ, can you make it kind of quick? That's the one. All right. We'll take one more.
I'll try to make it quick, yeah,
Thank you.
sure. AJ Turnator, Cambridge Turnpike, another comment on the IRA definition adoption. It's time for the town of Concord to reverse its endorsement of the IRA definition and adopt an anti-Semitism definition that does not restrict criticism of Israel or silence pro-Palestinian voices. Alternative frameworks such as the Jerusalem Declaration on Anti-Semitism and the Nexus document offer more precise distinctions between anti-Semitism and political criticisms of Israel. Both definitions were developed by expert scholars to address the serious issues raised by IRA, and a quote from the JDA, because the IRA definition is unclear in key respects and widely open to different interpretations, it has caused confusion and generated controversy, hence weakening the fight against anti-Semitism, unquote. Claims that the IRA examples are non-binding or non-punitive tools are outright inaccurate. Hundreds of students and faculty just in Massachusetts higher ed have faced disciplinary proceedings, lost their jobs, their immigration status. Some of them have been imprisoned for exercising their First Amendment rights by criticizing Israel. If the names Mahmoud Halil, Mohsen Mamdawi, Rumeysa Öztürk, and most recently Salah Sarsour don't ring any bells, may I remind us again some of the recent events in Concord that illustrate how the so-called non-punitive IRA framework has played out locally. There was an attempt to ban an Oscar-winning documentary involving both law enforcement and library leadership, raising concerns about censorship and the future of intellectual freedom in our public institutions. A member of the DI Commission labeled the same documentary anti-Semitic, implicitly under the IRA framework, and later apologized, underscoring how easily the IRA definition can be misapplied and ruin the reputations of citizens. If IRA stays on the books, I'm afraid we're not too far from a scenario when a public library will be scanned for pro-Palestinian books, librarians will be questioned and harassed, and compelled to remove them from their collections. Under the shadow of the IRA definition, cultural, political expression in Concord schools has already been harmed. Kafiyas, which are symbols of Arab and Palestinian identity, have been characterized as anti-Semitic or associated with violence against Jews by a Concord Middle School administrator, reflecting a troubling conflation of Palestinian culture with violence and hate. The same assumption underlies the Trump administration's attack on higher education, its evident targeting of Palestinians, Arabs, and Muslims using IRA-based false accusations of anti-Semitism as a punitive tool with life-changing consequences for those subjected to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now the consent agenda.
Okay, let me just ask questions. Does anybody have any comments about the consent agenda? I know there's some proclamations in there, but before you do that, any comments on minutes or any other? Please. Okay. All right, so let me just proceed. We have two proclamations in here in the packet. One is Holocaust Remembrance, and there's an event this coming Sunday where that proclamation will be read. So we're not going to read that this evening. But I will read this one around Public Safety Telecommunications Week, which is April 12th through April 18th, 2026. Whereas the second full week in April has been declared National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week by the Association of Public Safety Communications Officials and has been historically recognized by Presidents of the United States of America and the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America. And whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, and emergency medical services. Whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of law enforcement, firefighters, paramedics, and emergency medical technicians is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of law enforcement officers, firefighters, paramedics, and emergency medical technicians is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone Concord emergency communications. And whereas the public safety telecommunicators are the single vital link for police officers, firefighters, and emergency medical responders by monitoring the radio, providing them with information, and ensuring their safety. And whereas public safety telecommunicators provide direct service to the citizens of the town by delivering life-saving instructions, coordinating emergency responses, and serving as the first point of contact in time of crisis, and whereas public safety telecommunicators of the town of Concord have contributed to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients, and whereas public safety telecommunicators are highly trained professionals and perform their duties with calmness, compassion, and dedication under stressful and challenging conditions. And whereas the contributions of public safety telecommunicators are essential to the effective operation of public safety services and the overall safety and well-being of the Concord community. Now, therefore, we do proclaim the week of April 12th through April 18th, 2026 as Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in the town of Concord in honor of our public safety telecommunicators whose diligence and professionalism keep our community safe.
Thank you, Wendy.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Here.
Mr. Chair, could I just mention that our Emergency Communications Center manager, Stephen Johnson, is here in the audience, just to receive the proclamation.
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you to the team.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right. Well, with that.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we now have another proclamation that we would like, I'm moving on. To announce, and this is honoring firefighter Jesse Carney, who I hope is here.
Coming in.
Coming in, great. The whole team is here. Yes, come on.
The highlight of the night.
Yeah.
All right, so which one is Jesse Caney? I understand. Sure, I say that. Okay, so this is the proclamation, obviously in your honor. Honoring firefighter Jesse Caney. Whereas on April 12th, 2026, while traveling on a JetBlue flight from San Juan to Providence, Concord firefighter employee Jesse Caney responded without hesitation to a medical emergency involving an unresponsive passenger. And whereas Jesse immediately identified himself, flight staff, organized bystanders, coordinated with other medically trained passengers, and ensured the patient could be safely moved and assessed. And whereas Jesse demonstrated exceptional leadership by directing those offering assistance, including local translator to communicate with the passengers and her companion. And whereas Jesse provided calm, compassionate, and skilled care throughout the incident, successfully waking an unresponsive passenger and remaining with her throughout the flight to explain next steps and offer reassurance. And whereas Jesse's professionalism, composure, and dedication reflect great credit upon himself and exemplify the high standards of public service. And whereas the select board recognizes that such actions performed voluntarily and without expectation of recognition demonstrate extraordinary commitment to the well-being of others. Therefore, the Concord Select Board hereby recognizes and commends Jesse Carney for his exemplary response, his leadership during a critical medical emergency, and his outstanding representation for the town of Concord and its values. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do I hear a second for the second? So, any further discussion?
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys.
It's really very impressive.
Mark, I just wanted to note that I'll put both of those on parchment paper and get them
Yeah.
to them.
You're good.
Great.
A real song
Thank
version,
Yes.
very shortly. Thank you so much. I appreciate the work of the department and your personal efforts.
Appreciate it, thank you guys.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yes. You're welcome. Okay, then we have.
Select board appointments.
Don't we have another? Proclamation?
We do, but as I mentioned, the National Holocaust Remembrance Proclamation will be read at the event on Sunday.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Where's that event?
It's gonna be Sunday night in the hearing room, 7 p.m. And it's sponsored by the Human Rights Council.
Great.
Okay, ready for some appointments? Okay, so I move to approve the following select board appointments. Andrew Boardman of 110 Hillcrest Road to the Community Preservation Committee for a term beginning June 1st, 2026 and expiring May 31st, 2029. Reappointment of Pamela Ressler of 15 Partridge Lane to the Library Committee for a term beginning June 1st, 2026 and expire May 31st, 2029. Reappointment of James Fahey of 1544 Main Street to the Library Committee for a term beginning June 1st, 2026 and expiring May 31st, 2029. Christopher Schaffner of 534 Old Marlborough Road to fill an unexpired term on the Financial Audit Advisory Committee as the Concord Municipal Light Plant Board Representative with a term date of May 31st, 2026. Finally, reappointment of Steve Newbold, 124 Hillcrest Road, to the Zoning Board of Appeals with a term date of May 31st, 2029.
Point of order.
Yes.
I have to recuse myself from item A. So, I don't know how you want to handle the vote on that, but I just want to acknowledge
We vote
that.
separately.
Do it separately or just,
Okay.
What about Abigail's different,
So why don't we vote for that full slate with the exception of Andrew Boardman. Take that vote.
Okay, second. And any further discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Now we can take a vote on Andrew Boardman.
Your board one?
also.
Second.
Second, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, and one abstention. Oh, only three for. Okay.
Town manager, we don't have an answer together.
Right.
Well, this isn't the most recent one.
All right.
Here's.
Yep.
Is Abigail's? Oh, okay. Is that a nomination?
Yeah, so there was another.
That's one.
Oh,
It's not a motion document. You just choose. You just-
you know what, that was the nomination.
The nomination.
Okay,
It was, so it just appeared in the wrong place in the.
Okay, that.
yeah, that's correct.
That's great. Okay, good. So Abigail was.
Yeah.
It's not a- not a-
Yeah.
Good. Okay, good.
Yeah, good. Okay. There's that.
Manager's report.
Town manager's report.
Okay, thank you and good evening. While I was not necessarily planning to make a statement here about the external website, I guess based on some of the feedback that we've received, I just want to, I know the board is generally aware of what we are doing to address the issue, but just maybe to address some of the questions from members of the public. Since I first became aware of this over the weekend of March 25th, 26th, I have been in touch with both town council and with the police department, both of whom are working through this issue. We have town council doing some additional work for us in terms of the bounds and the limitations of free speech. This is not the first time this issue has come up in the last 2, 3, 4 years. It certainly is the most serious incident that we have seen. But this issue has come up a number of times where I've talked to town council, whether it's been with some of the Zoom bombings, some of the anti-Semitic rhetoric that we have heard, with the superintendent, with the First Amendment auditors. We have an issue going right now with the retirement system where we have an employee who is facing a lot of what I think is completely unwarranted scrutiny. And then obviously this most recent issue. So we are working with town council. We have been since the moment that we heard about this. And the police department is also looking into this as well. Right now, we are awaiting further a further opinion from town council before we move forward. Throughout this time, I have been in touch with the employee and we have been providing support as has been requested by the employee. So I know this is frustrating. I think everybody wishes more could happen and that could happen faster. But we are working on this and we are spending considerable time to see what we can do to address this movement. I really only had a couple of other items that I wanted to mention. I wanted to make an announcement about our planned broadband maintenance. So the Concord Municipal Broadband Team will be conducting a series of scheduled maintenance activities in support of our transition to the next generation of fiber optic broadband technology. This upgrade will significantly expand network capacity, enable symmetric multi-gigabit service tiers, and ensure long-term reliability for subscribers. During the maintenance windows listed or identified, which I'll mention momentarily, most customers will experience a brief service interruption lasting approximately 15 to 30 minutes. While a full service outage remains possible, it is not anticipated. We did do one scheduled maintenance on February 18th, 2026. We have two scheduled this month, the first April 9th, 2026, and this will be from midnight to 6 a.m. And then on April 30th, 2026, again, midnight to 6 a.m. with one final upgrade scheduled for May 7th. And again, from midnight to 6 a.m. Also during the work on April 9th, let's see, in addition to migrating additional customers to the new equipment, the team will be replacing optical modules that were subject to a manufacturer's recall for customers migrated on February 18th. So there may be some slight impact to service for those customers as well. And again, all of this work is being done between midnight and 6 a.m. to minimize impact. The third thing that I wanted to mention is I had two opportunities last week to talk to groups about warrant articles. So on Wednesday last week, Megan and I were at the Concord Business Partnership. We had the opportunity at their monthly meeting to talk about the fiscal 27 budget, fiscal 27 capital, and then also Article 12, which is, as you know, the municipal facilities request for funding. We had a good turnout at that meeting, and I think all of the information that was presented was very well received, and based on the feedback that we received from attendees, in particular, there was support for Article 12 municipal facilities. Not to say there wasn't for budget and capital, but that was most of the conversation and the questions surrounding that article. And I was very happy to hear that we had support from that group for that article. And then on Friday, the chair, myself, and Ryan Farrar, the assistant CFO, as well as Lois, sorry. Lois Wassoff, the chair of the finance committee, attended the first Friday session, and I was able to talk about budget capital. The chair was able to talk about municipal facilities, and I think, again, I think all three of those articles were received well. The meeting was generally well attended, certainly more people than I think we had at the public hearings. And so I was just very happy to be able to talk about the budget and the capital, particularly in light of recent news coming from some of our peer communities that are really struggling to put together a balanced budget proposal for fiscal 27. And not that it was easy for us, but we've been able to do that with what we expect to be a less than 2% property tax increase for residents for fiscal 27.
Yeah, the last warrant review is actually recorded in upon Minuteman Media Network. So that's available for review. And I thought that was particularly useful to actually have an opportunity to talk about how these articles actually interconnect and support each other, which is something that we don't always get to highlight while we're presenting them at time meeting hall.
Yeah, I was at the meeting on Friday. I want to commend you and Lois and others for the clear explanation of some very good news. The finance is very good news. I found the desires, the definitions, stabilization, free cash. There's a lot of need to define those. So maybe during town meeting, those definitions because I think they're very important for the public to understand what those various things are, and we use those terms all the time, but I think they're really important to understand the balance of our finances and how we're protecting the future with stabilization and free cash transfer. So I think those are very important concepts, and so thank you for the presentation, and thank Lois as well.
Yeah. The setup that we have here with town meeting is with the assumption that voters are coming with a certain level of understanding of what's going to be presented, because all of the speakers are quite limited in what they can say in terms of time. And again, with the assumption that we have a very robust public hearing process, we have lots of opportunities in front of boards and committees. And so what I particularly like about the League of Women Voters event especially is the ability to talk at a normal rate of speed and having some additional time to be able to, to walk through and maybe share some of the story that you don't get to share at town meeting because of the time limitations.
And you may not have time at the town meeting, but I think those definitions of those balance, it's really important understanding the finances of the town and how well balanced they are.
And it was a really, I was remote, but it was a great presentation that allows that exchange with not just presenters, but the audience. And I'll just note that there are 2 more sessions. There's one this coming Friday and then the following Thursday. I don't know the topics off the top of my head. There's definitely
School budgets are.
this coming Friday.
Yeah.
And then citizen petitions are, I don't know what to say, but those people should attend if they can, because they're great forums. So thank you.
Any other questions for the town manager? So a couple of the things that I had were under the chair's report have been noted already, but I will say that we posted for an additional meeting on Tuesday, the 14th at 9:30 a.m. and that would be a joint opportunity with the Transportation Advisory Committee. Earlier today, the comprehensive transportation strategy report draft was posted. And this will be a presentation by Stantec and town staff to get to, and an opportunity to delve into what's in that report and understand it. So the select board is invited to attend, and I thought it would make sense to post so that we could all be there and participate in that.
Where is that?
Next Tuesday, the 14th. At 9:30 a.m. and I'm not gonna remember the location, but Mark's gonna tell me.
It's casual.
Kaiser,
141 Kaiser.
141 Kaiser. Okay. Also along this similar line, the historic preservation plan draft is also out and available for review, and I know we're expecting a presentation on that. So as these various domains produce their plans and reports, it's very helpful as we move into goal setting and goal achievement to understand. I mentioned already that the league reporting from the 3rd is on Minuteman Media. I have asked Henry Dane, the proponent of Article 31, to update us on their thoughts. That's the one regarding the permanent memorial. I'm not sure that it got a lot of attention when we received it, but back in January, we did send a memo about sort of the purposes of that. And so I'm gonna redistribute that this week for your review. And hopefully we'll have a chance to have a discussion about that next week. It suggests that this group of citizens that are representing this article may be interested in a process, and so I think we may want to discuss.
As opposed to bringing it
Yes,
at town meeting.
yeah, okay, and they were gonna meet this week and he was gonna give me an update about that meeting, and that's why I'm proposing we'll potentially be discussing next week. We mentioned the Holocaust Remembrance next Sunday, and of course, the Miriam Corners exercise is also coming up next Saturday. That's what I have for the chair's report today. So I believe we're not too far off our timeline, actually. for the Concord Independent Battery presentation and vote. So, Captain Palmer and is Peter Ryan with you? Great. Come on forward.
Thank
I'm sorry.
We don't sit that often.
Yeah. Well, it's not spring in Concord till we roll out the brass cannon. It's my understanding that we have a new 5-year agreement between the town and the Concord Independent Battery. And we have the usual application for firing dates and celebrations. Is there anything you'd like to present on that?
You have the whole package.
Yeah,
The only thing that changes is if there's a funeral or a celebration of something that we may have that comes up.
okay,
We have an opportunity to fire for Mass Fallen Heroes, which would be on Memorial Day, the weekend prior to Memorial Day.
Friday.
And that'd be in Boston, but we would send you a letter as we have in the past. For permission.
and my understanding is the agreement is essentially the same agreement as the prior 5-year period. And everything was in place, correct? Great. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Always enjoy the channel.
Thank you.
Me too.
All right.
Well, we have 2 votes that we.
Yeah, we
What do
need-
do?
I need a
So,
motion.
all right, here we go.
Okay.
All right, so I move to approve the new 5-year agreement between the town of Concord and the Concord Independent Battery Inc. And the application of the Concord Independent Battery Inc. to fire the town of Concord cannons at the 2026 town celebration ceremonies on the following dates. April 11th at 10 a.m., the battery test fire at the old Mass Field, and at 1 p.m., Marion's Corner exercise. And on April 19th at 6 a.m., the dawn salute there, Old Mass Field. The old Mass Field. And April 20th at 9 a.m., Patriots Day Parade. And on May 25th, Memorial Day, 9 a.m. at the Rideout Field and 11 a.m. at Monument Square. And then November 11th, Veterans Day at 8 a.m. Sleepy Hollow Cemetery.
Second.
Great. I'll just mention that there's a 1 page, and I'm not gonna be able to call out the page, so you're gonna have to look for it. But it's the history of the Concord Independent Battery, and it's in our packet. And it's really quite interesting for anybody who wants to take a moment with that. I think it's right near the end. Yeah, historical addendum, so page 58 and 59, if you only read those 2 pages of our 214 page packet this week, you'll be rewarded. Any other further comments? Yes. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Pride proclamation and Joe?
Might need that 3rd chair.
Hey, good evening, thank you. I just wanted to let you know that we've made a lot of progress in the last 3 years and we really appreciate it. I want to introduce my colleagues as well. Kathy Regan from the Umbrella. And you know, I think you know Dan. And why it's important is because this, although 3 years ago, this is just an idea of the DI Commission, it's really an ongoing effort of a lot of volunteers in town making this possible. So when we encountered other towns, we found how much the support we get from you all has been really strong, and we really noticed that when we talked to other communities. So thanks so much. It's here to answer any questions about the request, the same as in other years.
Yeah, Joe, just, so thank you, but just, can you help me, Concord Pride, is it just a name, is it an organization, is it a town thing, is it a
It's just
private citizen thing?
Yeah, it's a group of volunteers that originally started, but in the very first year, it was an idea of the DI Commission. Henry Dane was chair, and the DI Commission had no ability to create a subcommittee. So we started a subcommittee of 2 people. The 2 members, Robin Rowe and myself, were members of the DI Commission. Volunteers started to come to that, and that's how we planned the first one.
And then after that, it's no longer a subcommittee of the DEI commission, it's a group of volunteers. It's sponsored by the DEI commission. We approve it. We give them like, hey, yeah, go ahead. And DEI commission helps with some of the funding of it through its own budget, but then all these other entities in town are contributing. So it's not a formal organization. It's a group of volunteers.
Okay, so is it, sorry, just is appointed by the DEI commission, or anyone can, anybody in town, when you want to be on, you can be on?
Yeah, like if you read like in November, we put an article in the bridge that said, if anyone wants to come help this year, please come. We had a big meeting with 40 people. And we meet about once a month, and it's always publicized and everyone's welcome. We get new people all the time.
Gotcha.
All ages.
Yeah, and there are activities that are planned as part of Pride Fest by a number of different groups that are interested in participating, and so it's more a coordination of the festival weekend, which this year is going to be Saturday, June 6th. And that would be the day of the flag raising that is requested here, as well as the weekend around which the banners would be displayed.
That's right.
Okay.
And sorry, Joe, you mentioned, just to confirm, this is not a different, this is the same as we've done previously. So there's been June Concord Pride Month and then a Pride Fest Day sort of proclaimed.
Because like Mark was mentioning, all these different groups that have activities, they don't all happen on the 6th. They in fact they're anytime during the month. So the whole month, we, like most of the country, the whole month is called Pride Month. We call it Concord Pride Month in Concord, but the day of the parade and flag raising and whatnot is actually the 6th this year, first Saturday of the month. They lined it up because Maynard's in the afternoon, and a lot of folks will come to Concord and go to Maynard.
That's great, so you're coordinating for us.
Yeah, a lot of this year we started going to this sort of a group of towns that are getting together to try to not overlap with
Yeah, not compete.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Acton, Sudbury, Maynard, Neshoba Valley.
Gotcha. So. Sorry, Wendy, I didn't know, you have something?
No, I'm gonna make a motion.
Okay, well, hey, can I just ask one, we are mostly, but it's two different things we're approving, right? I just want to, we're approving the
There's a
proclamation.
proclamation, and then we're gonna be, the flag raising and the, flags on the telephone poles.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
but, because that's not, I was just reading, that's not in the proclamation, so it's two.
Right.
Two different things that we're.
Yeah,
Okay.
according to your APP
Yes.
16, you have to do
Right.
one.
And then do the other, okay, that's fine, and then the flags is the same that you've done, they're the same flags or kind of the same process?
I just want to make a comment that when we first did this 3 years ago, you might remember, Joe, that I was really worried about it, that I thought we were going to be a target maybe for some kind of blowback. And it was just an incredibly joyful day. That if there's one word, it was a joyful day, and that's what it's become. So I'm very supportive.
I appreciate that. And this year we already have 3 groups from CCHS who are going to be performing on the stage.
Yeah.
Because of dance work, we've got seniors going to have the ability to ride in the parade.
Good.
So it's really expanding.
Good.
It's very
Welcome. At least this year I can come. I've been able to come the last couple of years.
Good.
All right, are we ready for a motion?
We are.
Okay, and I'll just note, there is a proclamation in our package, but obviously that will be read on June 6th.
Yes.
As well, just so. Okay, so I.
Chair is usually reads it.
Yeah. I'm unfortunately gonna be at a family wedding in Philadelphia that weekend, so we're
We'll
gonna
cover
have.
that. We'll cover that. All right, so I'm gonna make a motion to approve the proclamation celebrating Concord Pride Fest to take place on June 6th, 2026. And authorization to hang decorative pride unit flags on raising ceremony of Concord Pride on June 6th, 2026.
Second.
Any other questions? All those in favor? Thank you.
Great.
It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
The weather is
Thank
good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Melanie online or? Oh, there she is. Sorry, you heard, I've been asked there.
Hi.
Hi.
I guess we get some help from Dan too.
Yeah.
Nice to see you both.
All right.
Did you want me to speak first?
Yes.
Great. So I'm Melanie Deneen, the Public Health Director. I'm here tonight to make requests of the Select Board to vote to terminate our Concord Shared Public Health Nursing Agreement with the Town of Maynard in accordance with the contract requirement for board approval and the required 2 months' notice. As outlined in the memo in your packet, which is long, so I don't, hopefully you've had time to review. The county currently supports 2 separate part-time nursing positions. One, the public health nurse, in the health division, and the other one at the council on aging. While providing public health and nursing services to Maynard through a shared agreement. These roles deliver critical services, but increasingly we've had overlap with the residents' needs, combined with ongoing recruitment and retention challenges, has made this current structure difficult to sustain. The Council on Aging currently has an open position that in their division. To address this, we are proposing to end the Maynard agreement and establish one single full-time public health nurse and nursing position serving both the public health division and the Council on Aging. This unified role would improve coordination of care, strengthen communication and outreach, and ensure more consistent service delivery, particularly for our older residents and during our public health emergencies. I would also create a more competitive, stable position to support recruitment and retention while reducing our administrative duplication and improve budget predictability. This proposal has been developed in collaboration with the town leadership, and I believe is supported by the town manager, the assistant town manager, the director of community development, and Dan, the Council on Aging director. If approved, we will move forward with notice to the town of Maynard, and we'll make this transition effective July 1st. I respectfully request the board's vote to terminate the agreement and move forward with this more efficient and coordinated model. Happy to answer any questions.
If I could just say something before we take questions. I know this has been a very difficult decision for staff. I know for Mel and for Dan, Jess Porter, Megan Zamudo, and myself. I think in Concord, we feel a strong obligation to be able to help out our neighbors when we are able to do so. And in some areas, we've been able to do that successfully, and others less successfully. What we're finding here and with some of our other partnerships is it's just very difficult to take these on, particularly if you're really just looking at about 1 FTE. I think if we had a partnership with a couple of towns and we were looking at 2 or 3 nursing FTEs in total, it would be easier. But we are at a point where everybody feels collectively that the services that we're providing to Concord residents are being negatively or would be negatively impacted if we continue down this path. And so that's why this is in front of you, and it's not a decision that anybody has made lightly, and I think everybody is really struggling.
Couple of questions.
Yeah.
As far as Maynard, are they amenable to this arrangement? What from the conversation?
Well, they don't love it.
The conversations, they accept it, and they don't. I wouldn't imagine they would love it, but
I mean, I've worked closely with Steve Silverstein through this arrangement in the last few years. I did let him know that this was being proposed, and he listened to me.
okay.
I don't think, it's 15 hours a week that the physician is nursing there. And he gave him plenty of notice to solve and figure out what he's gonna do for public health nursing.
Yeah, I'm just curious what the conversation has been, so.
I was transparent. I provided the memo that I provided to the town manager, which was very similar to the memo. And I told him I've been, a lot of thought and time over the last, every time I have an opening or Dan's had an opening, we discuss it with Jess. We've talked about it a number of different times, what's best for the town. We like our partners in Maynard. We work well with them. It's not a bad arrangement at all. It's just that this one would serve Concord residents better, we feel.
And the second question, more, can you explain the chart, the cost breakdown chart, because I wasn't following. That, what's in the package, in your notes.
In the memo to the town manager,
In the memo,
It's 70,
Yeah.
72.
Yeah, it's right at the end of that.
yeah, right at the end of.
okay, so this is, you're looking at this one, the public health nurse cost breakdown.
Yes.
So
Sure.
what this means is the step in the grade, the cost in the health budget, the cost in to the council on aging budget. So like, I'm outlining that there's not a cost change increase.
I think I was looking through this earlier today and Melanie, I think what you're presenting is in the fiscal 27 budget as currently presented across the two divisions, we have about $105,000 allocated, 104,937 plus health insurance, an estimate for health insurance for both positions, because when you're over 20 hours, we offer health insurance, plus retirement for the one position that's at 25 hours a week. The revision to me looks like it would be a total of 91,561. With the going from two positions to one full-time position. And then we would be losing the potential cost of health insurance for one employee. So it looks like an adjustment.
Get something from Maynard today, right?
For 15 hours.
So currently, we fund through the budget for a full-time position to the health division, but we bill quarterly basis, 15 hours a week to the town of Maynard. And that is reimbursed and goes into the general fund.
This is net of that. Bill up to me.
So we bill, so the position is a 25 hours a week working
Right,
in Concord and 15 hours a week working in Maynard. But I guess on paper, they're a full-time position in Concord and we pay their benefits.
I guess I'm a little slow on the math. I was looking at that last column, which is blank. And the savings from the one benefit position.
Yeah, we're saving money.
I know. Can I calculate that saving from the numbers you had here? Or is it?
I think that number is 13,376, but that is gross of any reimbursement from Maynard. So we're not expecting
I don't think we're saving it.
a savings.
Okay,
It's more of an operational overlap with the positions
yeah,
and
that's what I thought,
coordinating of staff, time and the roles.
right.
A lot of the job description in both positions is very similar. Okay,
And that makes a lot of sense, independent of the cost savings, which I guess.
it's not the driving factor. It's not the driving factor.
Yeah, it is.
I was kind of curious, there are two different grade positions, so are you changing one's a grade 10 and grade 5, and maybe I'm reading to that wrong, between the council on aging and the health budget. Was the existing position different? The two nursing positions different, is one more skilled or qualified? It's just.
So the public health nurse has a lot of responsibility for disease, follow-up with individual residents. There's a lot of, knowledge and like HIPAA, like confidence when you're following up with disease. That's not in the council on aging.
But
job
one
description.
person and doing just two different roles, that's all.
It's going to be, yes, we will redo the job description. It'll be a new job description, including both work.
And so I guess to your question about the board health, what happens when this person goes on vacation? Is there sort of backup? Or do you scheduling?
So we have
services around that.
Public health has public health excellence shared service agreements with our surrounding towns. So we work with other towns. Right now, we have a regional nurse that fills in. That position is gonna be done by the end of this fiscal year. We have posting for another one that will be supported for the public health excellence grant. So that's plan A. And then I have an agreement with the Lincoln Public Health Nurse, and we have in the past swapped or shared for coverage. So just minimum, which is the MAVEN, the disease monitoring, which is like the minimum requirement. We haven't addressed the specifics of vacation we haven't gotten into that with that is the minimum requirement that has to happen.
And I assume it's a little easier to recruit for this position potentially. I mean, I know, Danny, with the Council on Aging, you've had turnover with the nursing position, so hopefully having a full-time position is gonna help.
Yeah, absolutely.
As well.
Yeah, I think when we were really getting no interest,
Right.
yeah, zero, so it was, we tried changing it from an RN to an LPN, yeah, and we were getting some interest, but then this idea came up, so that's the direction.
So I have a question about service that you're able to provide,
Yeah.
because I'm actually, first of all, I think the service that you provide is great. I know a lot of people that really depend upon it, so thank you for that. But what I'm seeing is that the budget had coverage for 49 hours total. If you were able to hire someone for the COA, so I know you've been down, but the budget was 49 hours of coverage, 24 and 25 hours, and now you're going down to 40. Right, so I'm confused about why we're not saving money.
No, you know what, I'm looking at this again, and yes, I think we are saving money. I think
I
what
do
we're
too.
saving is the 13,376.
Exactly,
Because
exactly.
the 25 hours budgeted under public health is the 57,000. And then, what we have currently budgeted in COA is the 47,000, but
That's
we're
right.
taking that out, we're replacing it with the 34,335.
Mm-hmm.
And the 15 hours that Maynard was paying for is not reflected here.
So that's right, so we're reducing the number of hours, even though we're really not, because we're gonna actually have coverage now instead of an open rec, right?
Correct. I do
Right.
think there's some overlap. So what we did talk about that, and that's been one of the main concerns. And
No, I
we're
understand,
transparent, like,
let me
of
finish
this-
my question, okay, so we're reducing the number of hours, right? But we are hoping that we'll get some economies of scale and we'll still be able to provide the services that you're providing. Is that an accurate statement, or?
Yeah, and for the COA geriatric nurse, we were 24 hours a week, but it was part-time. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right, and now you're gonna have one full-time 40-hour-a-week public health nurse that covers both.
Correct.
If that's what I understand is being proposed, so you're going from 49 to 40 hours.
But I feel
Yeah.
that of the 25 hours, at least some portion of that work was with the COA.
I understand.
So supporting the COA.
No, I
so it's
understand.
like an overlap.
Yeah.
I do recognize it is, yeah, but if I came to you and said I'd like 2 positions full-time, you might not support that.
No, yeah, but you, I'm sorry, I was a little, the Board of Health, Public Health Nurse is currently a full-time job.
It
Well-
is full-time position on the books that they work 25 hours in Concord and 15 hours in Maynard.
Correct. But how is it easier to recruit somebody?
Cause it's 2 towns and you have 2 different bosses and 2 different.
Okay, so it's the same job, I'm just trying to understand, it's the same.
Yeah.
Same job, same level, if you will, it's just,
Right.
hey, before I need you to cover 25 hours here, 15 hours there, versus now I need you to cover 40 hours over here.
So presumably in this environment, it would be likely that this person might make their home in Harvey Wheeler and do their public health nurse
That's a good
assigned responsibilities.
Right now, their office is at 55 Church,
Right,
and so they literally walk across the
They're
street.
across the, okay,
yes, so that they'd be able to be available on a more, potentially on a more flexible basis, because they wouldn't be running over to Maynard 2
Correct.
days a week. Okay. Any further questions? Do I hear a motion?
Sure. I make a motion to approve the early termination of agreement for the shared public health services with the town of Maynard.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And just, I'll just note for the record that the agreement was going to run through the end of June of 27, so it's a year of 6 years. So. Good. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. So the next couple of things that we were going to talk about are related to each other, and so I'm going to potentially introduce the three next things that we're going to do. So that we can have a kind of a thorough discussion of that. What's in the packet is the same draft of the MCI Master Plan Committee charge that we looked at our last meeting. Because I thought that generally speaking, everybody was okay with that. There probably the open question, the two things that I might modify on this and final is I think we should be specific about the number of members that are coming into that. So put a pin in that for the next couple of items. And then I do think that the wording on this could be strengthened a little bit in terms of the focus on community outreach. But I thought those were changes around the margins that we might want to discuss. But I did want to open it up that if anybody has, upon further reflection, got some thoughts about that master planning committee charge, we could dive into those today, and I'd be prepared to bring that up and finalize it. Let me just finish my intro, Paul, and then I'll take comments. The second item on item 13 on our agenda is would be a vote to dissolve the NCI advisory board. It's my recommendation that we do that because I view the master plan committee as sort of picking up the baton on the MCI planning with a more specific targeted focus for what we expect to do in this year. I took the time to review the MCI advisory board charge as I was building the charge for the master planning committee. And what you notice, some of the a number of the responsibilities that we had assigned to the MCI advisory board were picked up and essentially copied over into the master plan committee, precisely because they were continuation of that work. And I think that we would do well to redo that. And the original charge of the advisory board actually, contemplated the fact that we might need some kind of course corrections or changes in that. So I think that would be the approach that I would at least propose. So the main adjustments being the size, the term, and the integration of the land use working group's knowledge base and recommendations. And then finally, because we are really on the eve of starting the engagement with the consultants that we've hired to do the master plan and come up with a zoning package, I would like to have a discussion as we talked about before about who specifically we would like to nominate, and would be open to the idea of actually placing some names in nomination, recognizing that we would then do appointments at a future meeting, hopefully next week, but because of the schedule that we talked about last time, the consultant kickoff for this engagement is currently scheduled for the 24th of April, which is the Friday before town meeting starts. So it's also ahead of our next scheduled meeting, which is after next Monday's meeting. So that's kind of the choreography of what I'd like to accomplish over the next half an hour or so. And I'm open to the discussion on any points, but let's start with the charge first so that we kind of know what we're asking. Paul.
Couple of clarifying questions. Paragraph in the introduction, we talk about regular updates for the select board, which I think is really important. I think that should be in the duties, because in the duties, there's a quarterly reporting. I'd like to see that as a duty, regular update. You don't have to define that. I think it's fair, but I'd like to kind of flip that over rather than have an introductory comment. The next paragraph, I kind of don't understand when you say the requirements of the planning include the incorporated recommendation of land use working group and the traffic and transportation strategy work by the public works. I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to there. I mean, it seems fine, but for example, the traffic and transportation strategy work by public works. So what are you referring there specifically?
There are two things going on. The transportation strategy that has been, that we're about to see drafted
From
is
Stantec.
one, yeah,
Yeah.
from Stantec, it's one piece. And then the other piece are those specific things that have to do with site circulation and priorities that we've been identifying for the MCI site itself.
Which Alan Cathcart kind of talked about last
Right,
meeting.
yes, in
Yes.
November, right.
So, I mean, it's fine if we lump them together, just, you know, from
Yeah.
a charge, I want to look back in that to make sure specifically they're, you know, what you're referring to. And then in the land use working group, there are lots of recommendations in there. I'm fine to leave it broad, but if I'm on the committee and I want specific charge, I'm not sure exactly what it refers to. So I'm just saying to tighten it up, to be more specific in those two things would be great from a charge point of view. And then probably more importantly, in the duties. So item 3 is fine, working with town manager to define municipal needs and opportunities. I think we need duties that talk about commercial opportunities as well. And talking with Alyssa Sandoval, my understanding is that there are developers have indicated interest and the consultant is going to engage with those developers in some form. So, so I think this group, we should include a duty that includes commercial interests, however we want to define that as well.
So this document does complement the RFP and the RFP responses that from the consultant that we hired. And incorporated in that RFP is a requirement to engage with developers who might have an interest to seek their input, and that's also part of the work plan of the consultant that we're hiring to identify the commercial potential. So
I understand that. I just wanted to tie these duties to that.
Yeah.
Because when they're advising, talking with the steering group, that should be on their radar as well as the municipal needs. So that just seemed to be maybe another straightforward bullet.
Okay. I would love to.
Sorry, you're adding a bullet?
I would add a bullet, yeah, that deals specifically with work with, I guess, the consultant, I don't know, fleshing out, commercial development opportunities, however you want to, word that, but it would be a separate bullet. That seems to be missing it. So those are my comments on this, Mark. We'll talk about the numbers of people and a little later, so the membership.
Anybody else have
Well, just one comment on that, your question about the land use working group, because I had the same question, but in the second to last paragraph on the first page, it says that the land use working group's recommendation specifically for the DPW facility specifically prioritizes MCI. I thought that was the scope there.
That'd be fine if, you know, because there are a lot of land use recommendations.
Right,
You know, however, the land use recommendations also deal with other properties in town for housing, and I know the proposal has consideration of those, so it goes a little bit beyond the public works piece.
No, you're right about that, and we're gonna talk about the land use working group charge a little bit later. But we do need to recognize that some of this work overlaps with phase 2 of the land use working group, which is shutting down. But which is shutting down by mid-year, but coming out of that is going to be some specific ideas about what town-owned property might be surplus, might be used differently, and that really does feed into the discussion about what kinds of opportunities are created, assuming that there are the MCI site does become home to, say, Public Works is recommended in there, then there's an opportunity for some trade-offs. I want to make one more comment.
Go ahead.
One of the things that's the second paragraph refers to the memorandum of agreement that we're working on with the state, and unfortunately that is going a little bit more slowly than I had hoped it would go, meaning that you would have a better or a refreshed version of that to go off of. But if you remember, there are some points in there that discuss certain elements, and I don't think it's necessarily appropriate for us to talk about the specific elements in open meeting, but they do go in the direction of establishing some of the town's goals. And it's expected that this group would be familiar with that and understand the status of those negotiations, and that does involve also some of the elements that we were just talking about uses of other properties.
And but the overlaps and intersections are complicated, so I don't
Yeah,
overcomplicate the
and
charge, but.
I'm
Yeah.
also confused,
Yeah.
and my question was gonna be about the very last paragraph, which is coordination with other facility planning efforts related to the municipal consolidation, public safety, which were the other two pillars of the land use working group. And it says, will be made through town staff and select board, so am I interpreting this correctly to say that those two recommendations of the land use working group are not part of this committee's charge? That is part of staff and select board, and this committee will be focusing on DPW as it relates to the land use working group and possibly the reuse of other land freed up.
Yeah, as it pertains to that element of, for example, housing.
Exactly. So I think it might be better if we made that clearer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
That's what the specificity.
yeah, I had to read this a few times and so, yeah, I think the integration between the land use working group and this thing would be better if it's clearer.
It's not only clearer,
But
I actually think in some ways different on that last paragraph. The way this says, it actually says we're not gonna coordinate. It says, whatever the land use told us, we'll coordinate through the town staff and the select board. Not through the land use.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like, while the land use working group still exists.
yes, yeah,
I actually feel like we should be coordinating with the land use working group. Once it's dissolved, the land use working group ends.
right.
I'm just saying, the way it's written.
Yeah, it will.
Is sort of.
Yeah, now.
It's sort of like, hey, thanks, land use working group, whatever you said, we'll sort of.
Okay.
We'll sort of take it over here.
This is where I'm
That's
gonna,
where we're going.
this is where I'm.
That's
gonna
where we're
call-
going eventually.
Pretty soon.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just want, okay, I
Like
just
July,
want,
like July.
yeah, I'm just saying, like, wanna be, like, that's what that says, is that,
Yeah. Yes. Is that what this says?
Yes, and this is the conversation we've been having for several meetings now, and it's one of the reasons why the membership recommendation in terms of experience really suggests that what this group needs to do is bring in some expertise and from point of view of, by having a select board member, and I'll be transparent about it. I would propose that the select board member that represents the board on this be the chair, because I think it's that important and needs to have that representation, as well as the land use working group, as well as former members of the MCI advisory board and those folks that are involved in housing development in town primarily, as well as planning board. In other words, this is very focused. The idea is to come up with a plan and a zoning package in a pretty compressed period of time, a matter of 8 months, 6 months even, really, and get that work done so that we can get onto this roadmap that we discussed last time when we looked at the overview of the governance of all of this. So I was trying to make sure that it was really clear what lane this group was going to be in, because they need to be focused on MCI, and while we adjust and bring to an end what the land use working group has been doing, and while we consider, or this board considers, it is probably the best way to think about it, what's going to happen next in the public safety domain, in the municipal consolidation domain. I didn't want them to be confused about that.
Well, the specificity is important, and the way I see it, in the land use world, it's public works and MCI. And it's the yield analysis of the other properties.
Right.
It's not the full municipal consolidation, but it's the properties, because that's part of the housing equation. So, I mean, to be very specific with those two pieces, because that's It's exactly what we're talking about, I think. Right,
Yeah.
there's two pieces within the land use domain. As opposed to leaving it general, that's, I would just say. If you can do that, it's gonna help the committee focus on those two items, as opposed to be confused about the larger.
But only if we go down that path under MCI, right? So the assumption is that if we're gonna have a bigger piece of MCI, right, then we're talking about more housing opportunities within town, but maybe we don't have to give that up. With
Give what up?
MCI, we don't know that yet.
Give what a.
I mean, so the state wants housing, right? And so how do we know that we can't meet the housing goal within MCI itself? We don't know that, right? We don't know that
We
yet.
don't know that.
But your
But the
point is,
master plan specifically has those pieces identified as considerations, the other properties, Ripley, Peabody.
well, your
It's in it.
feasibility did, but did it in the master plan? In the RFI, did we pull out those potential properties? I don't know if we.
We did mention the economic analysis of those four
Okay.
particular properties, but I think that it's also quite, you know, it's conceivable, at least in my mind, that the use of some of those properties might not necessarily just be housing, it could be, you know, to your point earlier about commercial development. At least, you know, at least the lot, the parcels that we're discussing that are close to the town center potentially have commercial value as well as housing value, and so that trade-off may or may not be of interest to the state, but it may very well be of interest to us as we're.
But just mentioning those properties without specifying the use of those properties.
Right.
That's in the scope, and that's part of the committee needs to track.
Right, and so, and there is and those four properties that are explicitly mentioned, but then there's a, you know, a set of other properties which are potentially available after municipal consolidation and aren't even mentioned, but it might be brought in at some future point, but not by this group.
Not this.
Yeah.
This is a zoning deliverable here.
Right, this is
Right.
about the zoning deliverable.
Right.
And trying to put a stake in the ground about what the town's preference is for this, and I think that what's really. The other thing that I think is a very big connection, and we've received some commentary about it, it's not wrong. The land use working group has done a lot of great work. What they haven't had time for is a lot of public outreach to get people familiar with what their analysis has led to. And so I think that this is an opportunity to at least highlight one dimension of that. It's probably not the only dimension of public outreach that needs to be done. And that, I think, is where that last paragraph at the bottom of the first page really comes into play. When we're talking about recommendations related to public safety and municipal consolidation, that public outreach, I think, still needs to land with the select board and with town staff to try and figure out how to really introduce that effectively without confusing what this particular group is trying to deliver for us.
Summarizing my comment, if you can be more specific about that, what's in that paragraph about coordination of land use working group and transportation, I think that would help sharpen the mission here.
Okay. So, great.
Well, the last time we talked about this, you did request that instead of quarterly updates, it would be monthly.
Yes.
The last meeting, you asked that to provide monthly written updates to select board.
Yep.
Well, there's quarterly, you know.
Yeah, no, I just.
That's fine. The select board chair, I'm sure will, or the chair of the committee will provide regular updates. I'm okay with
Yeah, I think
regular.
that
I'm
was
okay
my.
Regular.
Without
That was
mailing
my
it.
response.
Regular is fine. with me.
Sorry, where is that one?
Number 8.
Should be monthly.
Well, I was moving the regular thing, which is in the introduction.
Well, yeah, it should be changed from quarter. That's all. It's gonna get right. So, Wendy, sorry, did you have other?
No, I guess what I'd like to talk about from the membership is, let's focus on what the skills are that you're looking, before we get to nominations, just talk about that mix of skills that you want.
Yeah.
Good.
So,
What's your comment?
yeah, so duty number 4. I guess. The second sentence of describe how the plan alternatives offset lost pilot utility and any other revenues from MCI Concord prior to closure.
That's a direct lift from the advisory board's charge. And it's kind of there as a historical reminder that, you know, the prison pilot payment was about $1 million a year, if I remember right.
The pilot payment from all state properties is about $1 million per year. It has not changed since the closure of MCI. And I don't think we are 100% sure in knowing whether that's going to change or not, because again, it covers all properties. I think that the more known item is the utility, the impact to the utilities.
Yeah.
In the master plan, there was language around that incremental revenue, so I mean, this seemed completely in keeping with what was in the master plan.
Yeah, I know one person that read this suggested that we should talk a little bit more broadly about the economic impact for the community as a whole. Is that where you're going?
Well, there's that, and I just also think the whole piece, this whole number 4, I just wonder, is this really the committee's
Well, the master plan,
responsibility?
We asked them to do that in the RFP.
right?
You know, that's what I'm like, it feels like a lot to ask the committee. I feel like it's, you know, you could say support the town staff and consultants' efforts too, or something. I mean, I'm not saying it shouldn't be response.
It's more, you know, communicate and ensure that the community understands what the selected master plan, you know, zoning is likely to lead to in this, yes.
Yeah, but I just think that needs to be rewritten.
Okay.
Number 4. To soften what the committee has to actually.
You're right. I view that the committee provides advice in all of these areas as opposed to doing the work.
Yeah.
Well,
the consultants doing the work.
Yeah, but that one just, I mean, the way it's written, kind of says, okay, you're gonna go
Right.
do all that, you know.
Tried that.
Well, no, but also then they might go and start doing that, and then like, wait, we got town staff doing stuff, then we got consultants doing something else, we got dueling models, whatever the case may be.
No, that's the consultant.
Yes,
Right.
that, all of that will happen.
Yes. Great.
So is somebody,
I thought somebody was trying to say something,
It was me starting
Oh.
to double work.
No worries. Okay, I thought it.
And then, under logistics,
Mhm.
it seems like we then have the last bullet about expertise, is that meant to be? Expertise of the committee members?
Yes.
So I think we might wanna put that,
It's not logistics, really.
it's not really logistics.
Right.
yeah, it's not.
And then we talked about this, I think the last time, the committee will liaison with Public Works, Planning Board. We might wanna say, and any other, I guess it's just sort of like,
Yeah.
you know, people will start to say, well, why didn't you talk to recreation? Why didn't you talk
Why didn't you
to?
talk to the economic?
Yeah.
Why didn't you talk?
I don't wanna mandate list every committee,
The
but
two
just,
reasons for, those two in particular are, one, the assumption that the land use working group recommendation about try to solve the public works
Yes.
location kind of requires that. And of course, the zoning package is the outbound, and we know there are historical properties.
Yeah.
How
So,
about this, we specify those two because
Yeah.
they're central, and then just say, and any other.
as appropriate, right? Yeah,
oh,
as deemed necessary or
that
something.
was needed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So I feel like there's like a decent amount of edits.
Okay, but I also feel like there's a pretty good shared concept of what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So in the interest of trying to move ahead.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the second point, Is there anybody that has any objection or concern or about the notion that this group effectively replaces the MCI advisory board and that we should go ahead and dissolve that, which, by the way, hasn't met since.
December.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, yeah.
I mean, I
Right.
so I didn't think there would be, but I wanted to raise it and that would be a vote in a minute. And then from there, I'm willing, if the board, I wanted to know if the board is comfortable with the notion that we discuss how many members we're looking for and then start to actually consider putting some names into nomination, assuming that everybody's been thinking about this for some time now.
So I think, Mark, talking about the membership
Yeah,
makes sense. I think talking about who on the select board would be if we decide there's one select board designee, I think that makes perfect sense. I think our process would not be that we would be nominating people. With a charge that we haven't even completed and, a process that, we look at how we follow the
Well,
process.
we are under a time constraint, remember?
Yeah, but that
We're having
doesn't-
to kick off.
I know, but that doesn't give us the right to,
One of the other
not follow the
questions,
process,
I mean,
right?
to your question about process, typically we're advertising, eliciting input, right? But this to me is a little different in that we're trying to leverage some of the skills from other communities also, right? Are you suggesting, Cameron, that we would open this up to public and then bring new people into this process versus
I think
leveraging members?
If we
of the-
agree on the charge, as we're talking
Yeah.
about, we agree on the composition of the membership, and then we agree on who it is that's going to be the select board person, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot, right, in one
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah.
And then that person would come back with, in the next meeting, with proposed nominations.
So you're expecting this?
I mean, how would you, we have no names, there's been no names published, there's been no names made public, there's been no process up to now. So
Okay.
if we wanna follow any sort of process related to APP 10 or public disclosure, or, how could we not? How could we do that on the same night as we're sitting here talking about, we don't even have a final charge?
Well, actually, it's kind of general, whether we do this tonight, timing. We have all ample opportunity to think about this. This has been on our radar, and I think each of us have thought about this. We haven't talked about the expertise we have to and potential people. So I don't think there's any harm in kind of putting that out there now. And maybe we'll come up with the list. I would not go public with this, so, we're inviting, but we could recommend at large numbers, so we could reserve positions ex officio or other, but I think we need to move forward. And I don't think we're violating any principle or policy by discussing expertise and potential people here tonight.
Right, especially from a continuity perspective.
Right.
yeah,
This isn't a startup.
Right, this is not, yeah.
So you all think it would be appropriate to nominate people who, just out of the, there's been no names, we normally publish. We normally have the person who's in charge. First of all, we normally name somebody who's gonna be in charge of the committee. We then have that person actually do due diligence and go out and consider what the membership should be. And then that person takes the lead in saying, okay, so here's who I'm gonna nominate. And you're suggesting we circumvent all of that and just nominate people because we feel like doing it tonight?
I think circumvent is harsh.
Well, then
I think
what
we should
word would you choose?
We should consider what's best for the mission here, for the town, to move forward with the consultant and with the kickoff meeting and to get input into that. We have a time constraint. And we have to deal with that time constraint. All things being equal, if there was an RFP.
It's not an excuse for.
We would have time.
It's not an excuse for us.
There's a
It's not
couple,
an excuse, there's a good reason.
there's a couple of ways to think about this. One is the town has hired a consultant. The consultant has responsibilities for public outreach and public engagement. And I'm actually quite confident that the town operating with the staff that has been applied to this, could in fact start this without a seated committee. What will happen though is that if we do not bring citizens into it right at the beginning, they will have to play some catch up, and this is going to be fairly fast moving. The reason that the membership list appears as it does in here is because I think that it definitely implies that we want experience and skills working in these areas that have been identified here. The land use working group and or the public works commission, the MCI advisory board, particularly public engagement, since that was one of the strengths of that group. The land use subcommittee, because that's the group that engaged the most with what the possible uses and alternate uses were of this. Housing development, because we know that we need to settle on a specific housing connection to the housing production that we want to have off of that, and so we need to, and not to mention the fact that the Junction Village property is actually quite important and central to this, as well as we understand that there's a need for commercial real estate development in here, and of course the output has to be zoning and packaging. So a zoning package that can be brought to a town meeting that's going to occur within the year 27, most likely. So I think that implies a fairly specific set of skills and experience that needs to be up to date. And that's why looking at people who've been involved in those areas, I'm actually quite prepared at this point to suggest some folks that I would be comfortable nominating there. I have also looked at this list enough and talked to enough people that I've convinced myself that although, a 5-person committee can work faster than a 7-person committee, I also think that this is a broad enough scope of work that there's something to be said for going with 7 people rather than 5. So I'll just say that in terms of what the charge says, I'm inclined to have 7 people, including one from the select board as in the membership here rather than 5, because I think it's hard to cover all of these things adequately with just 4 or 5.
Can we talk about the skill, maybe a productive thing to talk about the skill set?
Yeah.
So I have 2 comments. One, I think I'd like to delete one, and one I'd like to add. So I think the land use subcommittee of MCI feels a little bit redundant now with the housing development and commercial. I think we have representatives. I don't think we need somebody from that committee who was part of that visioning per se, because I think the land use pieces are covered by housing, commercial, public works. I think the land use is literally that we thought was covered there. So I think we need somebody from the advisory committee on the public engagement part. But
are you proposing we take out?
Well, I would take out the second,
The land use
subcommittee. I think because we could have that.
As long as we have the commercial real estate development, and I know we're gonna have housing, so
Yeah.
that, but we need that commercial.
Oh, we do, it's in there, no, I'm saying,
Yeah.
I don't think we need,
Yeah.
the one that isn't in there, Mark, I think is, I'll be very specific, West Concord community participation, I have somebody in mind for that, we don't discuss that now if you don't, but I think it's really important that we have that very local qualified perspective in there, because I think if we don't, it looks like we're ignoring the very local public interest.
We're gonna have so much.
I don't want.
Part of this committee has to do a lot of public outreach, right? So there's.
No, I know, but having somebody representing that constituency, with a skill set, that's what I'm thinking about. So I would add that. Whether it's we're called at large or whatever, I think we need that voice in here, and it's not just it's an advisory voice, somebody.
Yeah,
well, they're all.
So, but it could still be somebody from West Palm.
So that, I'd say, I would one out and one in, that was just what I was thinking.
Yeah, no.
Ideally, whoever we name would cover more than one base.
Yeah.
Right? That's to keep.
That's the way I was selling.
I would like to talk about the last bullet here, the planning board and or zoning, and kind of make a finer point there. When I think of zoning, I think that's central to this work. But to me, there's two types of zoning expertise. One is understanding the textbook of zoning, our land use bylaw, and the other is understanding how to get a zoning, a new proposal through the process of town meeting. They're different. So, we have people who have experience with doing something like that. And we also have people who have experience with, I think really understanding the actual bylaws themselves. So, I think we need both. That's
We need both somebody with them.
Somebody
with the
who's
zoning experience who knows the nuts and bolts, or someone who knows how to get something through town meeting.
both.
What about somebody who
But we're
knows
gonna have-
housing and zoning?
About what?
Housing and zoning, the housing zoning combo.
Maybe.
Yeah, not sure we need independent piece. We can find a person who can cover a couple of spaces, as you said, that'd be great.
Yeah, we need people who can.
We've had this challenge before when we go to set up a new group.
Yeah.
And you're, especially when you're looking for a small number of people, and it's let's call it a novel mission. This feels very much like the same discussion we had when we started talking about the land use working group, and we went back and forth around that quite a bit. And so, I think that's why I do think that there's some usefulness in talking about who we might put forward for this, and then see whether we have some consensus on nominating those people, because as a team, they could accomplish this particular set of objectives.
We haven't even agreed on what it is that we're looking for, so.
Well, I think
We have a list, we're debating whether to add or change, I mean, I think that's factual, we're debating on whether to add or change to the list, yeah?
there's gonna be.
Well, maybe if we put some names, we could say, oh, that person would cover that.
Sure, let's just, why have a process, why have an APP?
Well, we
Let's just
do-
throw out names.
We do have a process.
So,
And this is a new committee. So it's not like we're talking about, something that's standing or that people could have known about how to apply to. We've also had a process running for quite some time. That the advisory board was running, that the land use working group is running. We certainly have a housing community in this town. Now we're talking about bringing them together to solve a particular task. And if we name them now, we can get them started on time for this task, or we could just delay for a little bit longer.
well, we're jumping around a
What process would you recommend?
I would recommend we actually start with the charge itself and the discussion that we were just having around what it is that we're looking for, how many members, which we haven't decided, what are the skill sets, which we haven't completely decided, which we're talking about right now. Once we're done with that, I would suggest we then say, okay, if everybody's, we still have a lot of changes to make to the committee charge, which we just discussed 10 minutes ago. Then we have to move from the select board, who is it that's gonna be the select board representative on this committee, right? That person would then go and say, okay, I am in charge of making sure that we come up with nominations for the membership. They can do that in an expedited fashion. They can do that. They can do that in a week. We got a meeting next Monday. They can come back and say, hey, look, here are some proposed nominations. We can come back and have that when it's been properly discussed, and people have had any opportunities to provide input, including anybody from the public who might provide input or other committees. Mark, if the meeting's on April 24th, if we need to have a separate session on April 20th or a 15-minute session between April 13th and April 24th to say, hey, we had nominations. We're now going to move to appoint these people, and we want to get them appointed because we want to do this on an expedited fashion prior to April 24th, then let's have a separate meeting and do that. But I just don't think,
But
yes,
I think
let's
what
move
you're
quickly.
assuming, Kim, is that in your process, we appoint a select board member and you assume that we would agree with the select board member's choice.
No, not necessarily.
Well, then we're not on the expedited path.
Not necessarily. You can have, how do we do it in any other situations?
Well, when I impaneled the MCI advisory board, I wrote the charge and I contacted people and I looked at cards we had and I brought it to the select board and you approved it. Okay,
So why wouldn't we decide tonight who's gonna be the person from the select board, who's gonna be on this committee, and they can.
I think
do what
we're
you
worried
just said.
about a delay. And
But I just put forward well, you asked me, so I just put forward what I think a process would be that is open, transparent, that I think the members of the town would look at and say, hey, they needed to do something in an expedited fashion. They also did it in a way that followed the process that they've discussed and laid out.
Also, this doesn't preclude the other select board members from making recommendations to
We could all make
Absolutely.
recommendations.
You know,
Absolutely,
yeah.
of course they can. We always do, right? I mean, people say, hey, look, here's who I might think about, right? I mean, that's part of the process is.
So I thought maybe tonight we were gonna try to talk about possible nominations, so you
Yeah.
sort of said, think about these, and I went away and sort of said, okay, so who do I know? Who has some of these skills?
Yep.
Whose names I might like to put forward, actually some names, do you wanna do that? I wanted to make sure that we're clear on the skills and the background that we're looking for, you asked us to come back with.
Yeah, and I thought that we had been thinking about these.
Right.
Yeah, you did.
beforehand. I mean, we were starting from scratch, and we had.
But there's
I know we
nothing
have.
published, there's nothing in our package.
This charge has been in the last two packets. We've been talking about the need for this group for considerably longer than that as we were coming up to this. And the discussion about how many people was a big part of what we had last time. And I did ask for people to go away and think about it. And so I've given it considerable thought and talked to a number of folks to try and make sure that I was doing is the best job I could at finding people that could cover as many of these bases as possible. I don't think. And so what I'm trying to do here is advance the conversation further by saying, let's start to talk about who we would form. So I'm quite happy to name 7 people at this point in time. And, for your consideration and for the consideration of the board. And I'm also aware that there are other people who have both expressed an interest and, certainly have skills that could be valuable if that particular mix, but I think that if there seems to be an advantage to changing the mix in some way, shape or form from what I'm proposing we do is start with a list and then see whether we can reach some consensus on how to finalize that list.
We all, I think I ideas some people, you have ideas some people, I don't know, Paul, I think that's good,
very
some
good.
thought.
So we haven't decided on how many members.
Well,
And we haven't decided on.
I was proposing that we got, if you remember when we sat down and discussed this last time, I was really leaning towards 5. And I tried a number of ways to solve it with 5 people. And I felt like no matter what I did, I was going to end up with some holes in the skills and expertise. So I increased the number by a couple in order to try to solve for that. And what I was, again, and this is my thinking, I was looking for strong continuity with what the advisory board has done and what the land use working group has done, and recognizing that at the end of the day, probably the key decision that needs to be made is how much housing and what kinds of housing. And we all participated in the housing roundtable just last week. And in that discussion, the idea of looking very carefully and in fact accelerating the housing production plan update, which I think is wise, it is both a challenge because it's another big effort that needs to be done at the same time, but it's also something that really can't be ignored. We recognize, and we've talked about it at this table, that there are probably the types and purposes of housing is focused strictly on, big A affordable housing or, is probably insufficient to really address what people are concerned about housing, whether housing is attainable, whether there's housing for workers in the community, and doing those priorities. We're going to be forced into a conversation about what kind of housing through the zoning conversation of MCI, probably well before we're going to be able to complete an update of the housing production plan, and yet that conversation needs to be going on at the same time. And that is, at least in part, informing at least one of my suggestions about who should be participating in this, because I think we need to find a way to overtly connect that.
I think if we think of this as a continuation of the work that we've already started, and we stay on a timeline that I think we're committed to, I think that we know who the pool of people is, and getting that down to 7 is the work we should do.
I think we should go with 7 people, we could probably, support the 5, okay? So.
Make that decision.
I just,
And that includes the select board.
yeah. I just, as far as housing being the key here, I don't disagree that is perhaps the key in talking with DCAN, but it's not the key for the sole key for the master plan. We need a master plan that includes housing and what we're gonna do with the rest of the site. So
Yeah.
we have to equally weight the town needs more than housing out of that site. DCAN needs housing.
Right.
No, it's in there, but
It's in there.
I'm just kind of
Yeah.
responding to, I don't disagree with what you said, but it's part of the solution. I don't want to just say we're doing this for housing.
So do we want to do skills or do we want to do names?
Well, maybe just. If we
So
did,
we're agreeing on 7?
I
make
think
a motion.
7 does make sense, especially if you're saying we need West Concord.
We need a motion.
Is there any objection to just at least making that change to the 7?
Including the
Yeah,
select board.
6 citizens plus the select
Yeah.
board member. Okay, it sounds like we have consensus on that.
Good.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my sense is that we are largely agreed on the, I heard the comments around the charge as being comments of clarification,
Yeah.
but not necessarily, but no objection of any, substantial to what the scope or the purpose of this group is.
I agree.
Which is why I'm comfortable starting to talk about who's on it, so that we can keep things moving. I'll be happy to produce a cleaner version of this that, hopefully requires an absolute minimum of typo corrections for the next meeting, if that's what we're doing. So that's why I think that it's not inappropriate for us to start to talk about who the pool of people is that we propose for this.
So are you wanna discuss the pool of people? Or are you trying to vote?
Well,
Nominate?
Let's start with the discussion.
yeah, I mean, it depends on how much agreement we have, but I would.
If we're gonna vote on putting people on the committee, I'm just not on board with that at all. So it doesn't mean, I'm just one person, but I just,
So we could nominate.
I'm
We can
not.
have
on
a
board.
discussion about possible nominations, right?
Yes.
I don't see why we can't.
We could do that.
I would happily compromise on discussion about possible nominations to be nominated next week. It's in the interest of
I
our
think,
full exposure.
So I have a feeling is this discussion, we're gonna have more than 7 names, right? So we're gonna have a slate to consider, whether you consider that slate tonight or whether between now and the next meeting,
Well, if we nominate next week and then we're gonna have a special meeting to appoint, right?
Right.
If we wanna do that before the 24th, that's fine.
or,
That's fine.
Or not.
I'm okay with that. But who's gonna, now I think we need to figure out the select board appointee and how, then that will be the point person to collect our input. Which is what we.
well, I would. We could do that, although I think that normally when we handle nominations for committees, we nominate the number of people that we have for open spots. We don't have a process where we put a bunch of names in nomination and then have an election, if you will. I thought about that. I actually thought about the idea of collecting names and giving everybody 7 slots and.
But we have,
trying to do that,
but we have
to find the 7 slots.
But we also have times where there are more people than spots.
Yeah, we get volunteers, but we don't, I can't think of any case where we've actually nominated more people than we had.
Well, you can't.
Positions for a board.
We can't.
Right,
Ultimately.
so that's why I'm saying if we're gonna have because of open meeting law, we're really not in a position to start, horse trading in the back room about who's gonna be the 7 names that are gonna appear on the next agenda. Which is one of the reasons why I'm really asking people to consider naming who they think should be on this committee at this stage, so that we can then see if we can winnow that down to 7 people that we propose nominate. I mean, it's functionally not that different. We can get to 7, then then the nominations can appear next week and we can appoint when it's appropriate.
That's fine. All I'm saying, Mark, is sometimes in this process.
Yeah.
If we wanna have a discussion, and I'm fine. Sometimes in this process, people hear this for the first time.
Yeah.
In the town, and I get it, even though it's a thing that's already been happening and there's these different committees, somebody comes back and goes, hey, you know what? I've been on one of those, I actually really didn't know that this was, I wanna do this, or somebody comes back and goes, did you know so-and-so? They actually have 50 years of expertise in this, and they're really great, and this is somebody you might wanna consider. And to just say to the town, like, no, we're not doing that, that was my only point, is yes, fine, if people have names, let's put them out there, fine. But then give it a week to actually have somebody winnow it down and come up with the nomination.
Okay, let's put it next.
Okay, just the only comment that I'll make, I have names, but I haven't talked to any of these people, so that's a little odd too.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
I haven't either.
Just tell me that it's a great names.
Well, okay.
I actually was gonna ask that.
Yeah.
Some people don't even know this,
Right, whether or not people whose names you are going to share are aware that you are going to share them and potentially have a conversation about them. We only have, a handful of people in the audience. And so I just.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people, they want their name.
As you name names, maybe it's just like you've had a conversation, because I think it's mixed. I think some of us have a conversation, some of us have not.
I've had no conversation.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, maybe somebody else had a conversation.
With anybody.
Yeah, but so to throw somebody's name out there, it might be like, why'd you do that to me, is also.
Well, you're only nominating them, you're not tying them.
Maybe somebody else had a conversation with one of your people.
No, that's what I was thinking.
It's entirely possible.
It's quite possible.
Oh, God.
Okay. So if you've had a conversation with somebody.
I had conversations with some people, I had indirect conversations with other people.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, well, let's go to the select board member, because obviously we've had conversations with them. I mean, at the table. So my suggestion is that Wendy serve as the select board representative on this committee.
I'm happy to do it only because I'm gaining planning board and zoning experience, and I think you're gonna need someone with some finance background too. When it comes to skill set. I'll also just recognize some of my other committee assignments we're gonna dissolve some of those committees too, so.
say that again, I think.
Some of the committees that I've been spending more time with.
Right.
They're gonna be dissolved.
Oh, okay.
2 of them in
I see,
particular,
okay,
so,
the RTE and which one?
the financial policy. Group.
Got it. That's right, good.
I'll also volunteer. I've got significant experience with integrated planning. It's really a lot of what I do in my career across complicated networks. Got significant experience working with management consultants and working across that whole thing. I've managed, hundreds of millions of dollars of consultant spend and outputs. Significant experience with state regulators, regulatory environment, and the things that need to happen in terms of those areas of opportunity and some of the challenges. It might be worth noting, I volunteered for 4 or 5 other opportunities and I've not been placed on any of them. So I'm gonna volunteer for this one.
No other discussion? I'm gonna say, did Wendy volunteer?
Yeah, I said I
You
would
did?
support it, yep. Recognizing my other few assignments to do this.
This is gonna take quite a bit of work to do this well. Because we know it's gonna be a tight group and we know it's gonna be fast moving. So it requires, I think, someone who has the time that they can dedicate to this. That's an important consideration for me.
Yeah.
And also, I think we need someone who, understands the direction of the select board and is willing to, stick up for that.
Yeah, I totally agree with both those things. I have time and understand, having been on the select board for 2 years and.
Well, with that, I think we need somebody who represents the select board and we can make sure that we trust that representation.
In what would be a concern of what representation?
I'll just leave it at that. We can go forward, that you speak for, that person speaks for the select board, communicates with the select board. And represents the select board interest, because we're all gonna we should all be very active as observers in this process and contributors to this process. So I think we need somebody that's a trusted integrator of that connection. I'll just leave it at that.
The other comment that I'll just make, which other charges do somehow, we haven't decided who's chairing this committee.
Sure.
Just, I mean, it could be a co-chair model, I mean, just an observation. This committee we can have the committee decide who's going to chair that too.
Yeah, there are various models. I think that going to 7 people opens up potential in different leadership. When it was 5, I was feeling fairly clear in my own mind that the select board member should probably be the chair of that group, just because I think it's a little bit more straightforward. And again, this group, we haven't talked about it too much in this meeting, but we're going to be working in trying to collaborate with DCAM through this master plan process in the hopes that the zoning that we're proposing is the ultimate, and the master plan is something that they're quite comfortable with and are willing to incorporate into their RFP. And there is a significant element of, staying on top of the ongoing negotiations between the town as represented by the select board and DCAM in that piece, and participating in the DCAM coordination meetings, which have been going on, and that I've been attending, and I'm, getting ready to pass that off. And I have asked Wendy over the last couple of DCAM last month or so to begin participating in the DCAM coordination meetings, recognizing that I'm leaving the board in a few weeks, and that's going to need to continue. And so in the role as clerk, I felt that was an important bit of continuity to take to be in mind, which is why I continue to support the idea that we should nominate Wendy to serve as a select board member on this committee.
Are you looking to vote on this now?
I think that's a good starting place.
I move to nominate Wendy Ravelli to be the select board rep to the newly formed MCR Master Plan Committee.
Is there a second?
I second.
Is there further discussion about that? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Nay. Thank you. Okay, so now to the matter of discussing candidates. I have communicated with all of the people that I would be prepared to propose. And received, back the idea that they would be willing to serve in this group. I do recognize that there are others that are willing to serve as well. And I think that, I don't see any real harm in the approach of having a discussion about who these folks are that have been contacted with an eye towards doing the nominations next week. I think that wouldn't particularly handicap the start of this group, but I do think that, waiting much longer than that would begin to be problematic.
How about we give because some of these people I've talked to and some I haven't talked to, but I know secondhand that they're interested. Would it be better if, and I don't want to prejudice our opinion against them because I haven't talked to them directly. Would it be better to just have us each send Wendy something saying, here's a person that we think you should consider nominating because of the following qualifications? Or they hit these bases or whatever, and then
I think that's how we normally do it.
yes. So, and then Wendy would put together a list of nominations and we would vote.
I'm fine with that.
That's how we did the MCI advisory board.
That's how we've done
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay,
That's
so
the group of other people coming up.
so we have an action item to send Wendy our nominations.
Okay. That's all.
Or okay,
Can we
great.
just know if you have spoken from them individually, you're
Okay,
sending me names.
okay, good.
Which is helpful.
Yeah.
We haven't identified those, the seven, the seven here, other than the select board.
No, the
The
skill.
skill sets.
Yeah, but there will be
I think we talked
overlapping, so
about-
it's gonna-
Yeah.
we're gonna have a bigger list of seven.
That's the thing, it's possible to come up with, if you go back to the charge, it's possible to come up with, say, housing development and planning board in one person, where somebody else might have housing development and MCI advisory board,
That's right.
or, public works commission and some other.
Okay, but I mentioned one skill set that doesn't appear.
West Concord bars.
West
Concord.
with an overlap in one of the other skill
Yeah.
sets, but I think
Yeah.
that's a important demographic
I
qualifier.
heard that,
But so, yeah,
I don't,
But,
I don't agree with that, but that's.
That's okay.
Well,
I'm just-
yeah, but if without having said that particular thing, if I look at my list, I could connect that to some of the people that are on this list anyway.
That are,
Just by virtue of the fact that,
I think that would be an additional benefit of a person.
okay, so we have a process.
Alright.
We do.
so the process is gonna be to suggest some names and
Very good.
qualifications to Wendy. And indicate whether they indicated that they're willing to serve or need to be contacted.
and then,
Okay.
Mark, you're gonna revise the charge, or
Yeah, I'll-
you do it now, or? Doesn't matter, I guess.
I'll tweak it according to the.
So we'll have a final one to approve next week.
Sure.
You want to talk about a special meeting date the week of the
Yeah,
19th?
probably should.
Yeah.
So that
I'm just assuming, because you mentioned the 24th,
the 20th is the holiday.
Yeah, this is a school vacation week, so.
and it can be short,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be long.
I'm sorry, which week we talking about?
The 19th.
19th.
Oh, it's something. Patriots today.
Yeah.
So it's
obviously
No,
not.
but not the
You're
20th.
looking at the same calendar as I do.
early morning. We can meet at 6:30 AM on Sunday.
That's true.
Sorry.
Right after the done, so.
I don't think we're going to do that.
It's a blue light.
Okay, so
For me.
Yeah, well, that's the advantage of school vacation week,
I
is it tends to not have too much stuff on it.
okay, how about Tuesday night, the 21st? Tuesday?
It works.
It's fine, yeah,
Yeah, look good.
6.
24th.
Oh, so maybe.
Yeah, solid fun.
What time? 6? The
Okay.
21st. Great. Good. Oops. Good. Okay.
Okay, So, and I have the motion to relate to the MCI advisory board, please.
Sure, I'm gonna make a motion to dissolve the MCI advisory board.
Second.
And I'll just make the comment that I will prepare a note of thanks to the people that served on that board.
Yep.
And because they did do a really amazing piece of work. And
And really, they set this in motion. They really did. They really did.
And I'm hoping we'll leverage some of their expertise.
I'm looking forward to doing that. Okay, any other comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, very good.
Land use.
Land use working group, as though we haven't already talked about that.
Okay, I think this should be quick. The purpose of revising the land use working group charge is because they're coming to the end of their work. And we wanted to get clear on what are the deliverables in order for them to wrap up and do something that can be then taken by the next group and move forward to zoning, hopefully a new fire station and maybe municipal consolidation. The only thing that I changed here are the things in yellow. And we've gotten some feedback that we, in phase 1, the use of the last sentence, which is in yellow, is really looking retroactively, and that might not be a good policy, so I'm willing to just take that out.
I appreciate that, yeah, I think that's good.
I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
missed that. Which sentence?
The very last yellow sentence.
Okay. Yeah.
Because we're trying to revise.
Exactly,
It's
so
not-
we could take that out, that's not a big deal.
Yep.
Okay, so phase 2, this is what we're asking them to do, or what they signed up to do. By the end or by no later than July of this year, which is the other change that I made. So, and you've read this, I mean, it's very straightforward. It's integrate the inputs across the subcommittees to develop a potential list of next steps, recommendations for us, which we will use hopefully to do something further with the land use or the municipal consolidation in the fire station as we move forward. And then to complete an inventory of surplus town-owned land with some categories. So this is, again, pretty
Yeah,
straightforward.
Mary, do you see that second bullet feeding into hopefully successful Article 12 funding if that moves forward? And because that's, I think we have said until FinCom that the select board would sort of determine what those scopes of work would be and how to spend that money.
Exactly.
And that would
Exactly.
feed right into that.
Exactly. Yeah, good.
So Mary, the one thing you removed was public outreach.
I did.
Right?
I did.
Although I really acknowledge, I did hear that, the League of Women Voters is gonna do something on the land use working group. I did that.
Oh, really?
May, yeah.
Are they?
They did.
Yeah.
Sven's going, yep. So I just,
All right.
You were
So there, I did.
Right.
I did.
meeting, it was originally in the charge and.
Yeah, it was to do.
It was originally in the
Right.
charge that the land use working group would be doing community outreach and
Got it,
we're
okay.
just running out of time.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
And that's gonna be taken up by the next phase. So yes, you're right. Okay, but I guess we are doing some community outreach, so.
You are doing something.
Yeah, I don't think in my opinion, the league is helpful, but it's not.
Right.
It's not broad enough to really check that box.
But still very valuable for. the
It's very
community,
valuable, but it's, yes, so I'm okay with leaving that out. So does anybody have any other?
Looks good.
I think this is all done by July, end of July.
End of July, right?
Perfect.
Yeah.
And we have Sven and Judith that have reviewed this with me, so they're good with it as well.
I think it's good for the change, so
So
it's as written, the last sentence about phase, is it one sentence, the last two sentences? Phase 1 will split into 3 subcommittees.
yellow highlighted.
The yellow
Great,
highlighted.
exciting.
Yeah, the yellow.
Sorry.
Okay, just check out that last sentence.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in
Yes, it's a
favor?
motion.
Okay, that's like a motion to me.
Works for me.
Great,
Aye.
good.
Okay.
Great. Yeah. All right. This brings us to employee goals, I believe.
Okay, so the next item is a short update on employee goals. This should be a pretty light and quick moving topic. So we last talked to you about the fiscal 26 incentive pay program goals for employees in November. Do we have the presentation, Kristen? Okay. So I'm just on the second slide. We have 178 employees participating for a total of 356 goals. That is a net increase of 14 goals. We've had some new employees come onto staff and they have submitted goals. So that's why we didn't change there. On slide 3, the first formal check-in for the fiscal year was in February. We had 90% of check-ins completed during the month of February. I think we're near complete, if not complete now. The second bullet says that there are 56 goals that were marked as fully completed. That's actually 62 that are fully completed. And you will see that on the next slide. So slide 4 is the goal progress. For ease of reporting, goals are reported either as, 0%, 25%, 50, 75, or 100%. So again, during the month of February, we had 62 goals submitted as being 100% complete, 49 as 75% complete. And then most of the goals at 50 or 25. So we have 81 and 88 respectively. And then we have 76% that are 0% complete. Now you have to remember that during the course of the fiscal year, workflow is heavier or lighter for different people. Some people have goals that can only happen at certain times of the year. So we're not hearing that there's an expectation that 76 goals will have some percent completion, but obviously those are the ones that supervisors are keeping track of most heavily. On the next slide, we wanted to give you some examples, and I think we did this in November, examples of goals. We want to give you some examples of things that have been completed. So we're noting the Green Homes Tour for Concord residents. We had more than 55 participants participated in this program that was offered. I believe it was a couple of months back already. The second, in recreation, we launched some new classes that were targeted at underserved audiences. And the classes that are being noted here, we had some classes both for the preschool age group and then some teenage exercise classes. So those were two areas that we were a little bit light in terms of the current recreation offerings. And what's noted here is that the programs were well received and they got some great feedback from that. And then on the next slide, we have employee testimonials. And this goal really is targeted at promoting the town as an employer and helping potential applicants understand what it would be like to come work for the town of Concord. So a member of our HR department reached out to existing staff members to gather some testimonial information that we will be including on our applications website. Again, so people can get an idea of what it's like to work here. And then we've had a number of employees participating in certification or licensing programs. And we've identified some certifications and licenses that have been gained by employees in this first period. So the next step in our process is next month is our second check-in. So during the course of May, all supervisors will be meeting with their employees to gather status and update status in our central tracking database. And then the final review happens as of June 30th. And there's a final review and assessment of progress on goals and then incentive pay is identified based on what employee progress is as of that period. I'm happy to take any questions you have.
I have a question and well, a comment really. I think it's great that we're actually aligning employee goals with our, with the select board goals and I'm particularly glad that we're, I'm assuming that we're matching compensation with that as well. Is that correct?
Employees are only able to submit incentive goals that align with either town manager or select board goals. Does that get at your question?
No, I was asking our pay raise is linked to completing goals.
So we have two components. We have performance,
Yep.
which is a step system, so that's tied to performance. And then we have the incentive plan, which is tied to goals. So it's a two-prong.
Okay.
And we set all employees up to be able to be successful in each of those two areas.
Okay, I noticed that when you have some of these progress and impact things, some of these goals that are linked to select board goals apparently were town manager goals, not select board goals. Like organizational resilience.
Yeah, I think that was.
No, that wasn't select board goal.
No, that's a big point. It's a good point, yes.
Yeah, so I guess I'm wondering, are we mapping employees' goals to the select board goals and the town manager goals and the town manager goals mapped to the select board goals? So
Yeah, so
I'm a little bit confused about that.
Yeah, and that maybe leads into the second part of the conversation. Well, what we are trying to get to is we have an agreed upon goal category, so that there's no difference between town manager goal categories and select board goal categories. The only real difference I would say in the current fiscal year is that catch-all organizational resilience. That is something that appears only on the town manager's goal category, not the select board goal category. But
It's interesting that 3 out of the 4 examples are
well,
organizational
you know, what I can tell you, or I don't need to tell you, there's been a lot of transition within the organization. We've had a lot of very tenured employees retiring, and this is not something over the last year or two. This is many years, and so we have a newer staff, and this is something that people are really resonating with. That it's very hard when somebody with a lot of tenure leaves the organization, and so people have been focusing there. I think it changes over time, you know, what people are, you know, what needs that they are seeing, but yeah, we do, that is something that has been of interest specifically to employees.
But is it of interest to them or is it a goal? I'll stop.
You know, I guess.
I'm a little bit confused. I mean, I thought we had I was really excited that we had initiated a plan of evaluating employees in alignment with select board goals and town manager goals. And now I'm finding that maybe we've got some goals that are kind of bubbling up from the organization, which might be a good thing to add, but it's different than my initial expectation of how this is
I
going to
think
work.
it's probably fair to say, there's some employees who feel their role isn't exactly aligned to the select board goal. So I mean, let me just make this up. I could be a customer service representative answering the phone. I don't, it may be hard for them to identify how their function is tied to a specific select board goal. So I feel like that's where your organizational resilience category comes into play. And that's not a bad thing, it's just certainly,
But again, all employee goals are aligned to a goal category set either by the select board or the town manager. The only additional category that are under town manager's goals is the organizational resilience. And going forward, I would like to, I've talked to Wendy about this, have a common set of categories, so there is no difference between.
Yeah, we're gonna talk to those categories in a minute. I think it is important, and, just reviewing what we last talked about in March, which was the select board, it was one of the things that's easy, I think, when we're setting goals for, as the select board to overlook is the portion that has to do with succession planning and keeping the organization actually functioning, which is the town manager's responsibility primarily. And if you really have to look at the organization to appreciate the town organization structure is very, very broad and not very deep. Succession planning is particularly challenging when you have so many very distinct functions that are actually quite lightly staffed. I mean, to pick on, the assessing office is 4 or 5 people. The cemetery department is 2.
2 people.
And so when you have somebody or personnel who occupy those roles for a very long time, recognizing when that change is going to occur and getting out in front of it and really addressing it is something that happens, frankly, it below or outside of the scope of what the select board is looking at, but it is a very important element of. So I think if we're gonna, this is maybe segueing into what Wendy's gonna talk about, which is the categories. I think the select board needs to recognize that and make space for that in the goals, even if we recognize that the town manager themselves is gonna really.
Another approach would be to keep our goals, select things that are under the control or influence of the select board, and then the town manager as separate, and we just kind of review that. Or but.
Yeah, but optimally, if they can mesh without forcing it, that'd be the idea. And I think we can.
Well, it really comes to having an awareness of what some of those things are. And I think the conversation with the town manager about what the town manager's goals actually are is a good place to touch on that.
Okay.
So I think it's good progress stuff.
One other point I'd like to make is we do ask and expect employees to be very creative in coming up with these incentive pay plan goals. So we do allow a lot of latitude, freedom, I guess, in identifying what those goals are, but they are reviewed by the supervisor and up through the organization to make sure that they do in fact fit with the goal categories. But I think we've seen, I think what employees like about this is the opportunity to be creative, to be able to see where they can add value in an area that the select board has identified. And I think one of the examples that comes to mind, and we've spent a lot of time talking about communication and making sure that the community understands that the work that we're doing and more importantly, the good work that we're doing. I can think of the building commissioner participated in it was the community, the Concord Housing Foundation, I think, sponsored a weekend workshop on ADUs. And that was something he presented at, really on his own time in a forum on a topic, a community forum on a topic that I think a lot of people are talking about. And so,
But I got that in line with the select board goal, right?
Yeah, and that's not necessarily something that we might see, but for the opportunity for this incentive pay program.
Joel, segue.
Yeah, so the second thing we were gonna talk about in here was the proposal from Wendy around select board categories that could be used going forward.
This just falls back on what Carrie just said, in the interest of trying to keep things aligned, and also just not to have the categories change year to year, because it's easier for staff to sort of think in these consistent categories, which I think it would be helpful for Carrie and the team. So these are probably pretty straightforward, and we'll list some of which we already have in our current goals. So the area of strategic planning is pretty straightforward. I mean, so what I'll just say is that there's 4 categories: strategic planning, with financial management, effective, transparent government, resilience, and sustainability. And they're described up above, and then I just put them into boxes down below. I pulled out from the last time we reviewed our goals, the things that we identified as 2027 goals. This is not a conversation about 2027 goals, but I just took what was there and tried to slot them into these categories. I think they're pretty straightforward. The other examples that are in here, just examples. I'm not saying they're goals, but I think they're pretty straightforward. From strategic planning, financial management, we made a point of saying that we did want to make sure that fiscal integrity continued to be a focus. These are also areas of revenue generation, but I would also say administrative cost efficiency also should go with that, because we want to manage our control our costs where we can. That's part of that strategy. When we think forward, Mary, we think about land use, and we're trying to think forward around financial issues and projecting debt. I would see that kind of work would be in this area as well.
Yep.
Effective and transparent government, things that we've done around website, or even the work of that if it's sort of external facing, obviously to our residents is important. We talked about efforts around organizational resilience. That could fall under the effective and transparent government in terms of succession planning and just organizing ourselves. I think it might also fit under resilience and sustainability. But we're obviously focused, we've got a lot of history around sustainability, and we're improving our focus now on resilience. The SUASCO initiative that we're starting, that will go on for 2 years, climate action plan, obviously solar and those type of items. So the idea here is that we would have categories that would be used consistently year to year. So each year we would have different goals. That's the intent.
Okay.
I think the alignment, we should seek that again between town manager, select board go. So I see within the category of effective and transparent government, an opportunity here. What I'll call it organizational improvement. And so the select board's role is to encourage that, is saying it's not to manage that.
Right.
And subsets of that, for example, are innovation and efficiency, which relate to. So I think we should encourage in the organization innovation, meaning staff members proposing new and better ways to do things, whether it's technology or efficiency. So I think innovation and efficiency under organizational improvement may be the same thing as organizational resilience, but I see organizational improvement in a large sense being under effective and transparent government. And I think that would be a really good alignment with very tangible things that staff can relate to, efficiencies and innovation.
Right.
People can act on those. Just suggestions.
That's great.
I think it's a great start, man.
Just a start.
Yeah,
It is.
no, I think
It
it's
really
good.
is. It's a really good
I think on strategic plan, we might consider, anything around commercial.
Yeah, actually, that's
Well,
growing.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I see you have economic vitality, commercial development, and
I put them together, you're right.
we might need to rethink about the charge for the economic vitality committee. I mean, here they're different. The economic vitality and commercial development are different,
Right.
given the way we've written the charge for the economic vitality committee. So that's something we need to kind of, decouple.
No, I can agree. I put them together because when we talked about it last time, we made just that same statement.
Right.
Because we need to rethink it.
Right.
Vitality.
I love that you have the website enhancement on here.
Well, separating housing from land use is two separate things.
Yeah.
May sound, land use should maybe be a little more
Recreation,
general,
commercial,
or
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be
Well, I think-
a couple.
Yeah, what we heard about the housing production plan update is probably our
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
These are just examples more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, you can't capture everything, but we're just throwing out some
This is good.
some other ideas.
All right.
Affordability, under.
Yeah.
Maybe some.
My next also.
Yeah, AP 10.
Okay, we'll make this quick. So APP 10.
So,
Can we move on? So I put APP 10 in here because, when we were doing our recruitment for the, open house, I was trying to validate when people's terms were ending and realized that we have a discrepancy in our policy versus how we've been assigning and do. So, but there's really three changes in this policy. I know you've read it, but let me just say them quickly. One is, I think we had Carmen Reese come to talk to us around the APP 10. We agreed that we would remove the moderator from this role. But we all agreed to that, but we didn't change it in the policy. So now it's here in the policy. All right, that's why that's
Did you
here.
vote that on?
We did, but it didn't get.
We didn't.
Okay.
We did vote. We did vote.
We
Yeah.
We
did.
did vote
All
it.
right.
So,
Okay,
all right.
we might have missed one.
Right, and then on the top of page 2 under general, one of the conversations that I've had with Carrie is that we have different appointing authorities for different committees, so there are some authorities that the select board approves the appointments, some that the town manager nominates and we appoint with select board approval, and others that the town manager manages all internal. And that's not documented anywhere outside of the town, the annual town report. So we put, Kristen's gonna help update our committee list and put that designation in there so that we all have some awareness to that.
Great.
That might be a separate role and responsibility if I need to consider that, but then on page 4, with the statement in here around terms of office. And it said, all terms unless prescribed by statute shall terminate at the end of the month following town meeting or May 31st, whichever's earlier. But that's really confusing, so I just spoke to Carrie, to town clerk's office, and we're just saying it May 31st.
That's good. That's really good.
Just be clear. And then lastly, I added something in here, I think it's the last page,
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about this last one.
Yeah, because this gets to, for the appointments that the town manager alone manages. I recognize and I appreciate it that people are gonna appoint it, it's not on our select board agendas. So these are appointments that aren't necessarily documented through the select board. So this, I just added it to say the town manager
But it
appoints.
conflicts with the point above.
But it doesn't, because there are appointments that the town manager alone appoints.
I understand, but if you, so if I read point number 5, for town manager appointments that are approved by the select.
That are approved by,
Okay.
so
And
that's
then point number 6 says,
Yeah.
for town manager appointments, no select board review is required.
No. So there's town manager appointments that with select board approval, that's a separate category. That
That
town
requires,
manager
that requires. They require select board.
Yeah,
Right.
so
So it
it
should
should
say
be,
that.
number
that
6 should
required.
say for town manager appointments for which no select
Right.
board.
For
review.
which-
That's all I'm saying.
Okay,
is-
for
yeah,
which-
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to say for town manager appointments for which no select board
Yeah,
review is
yeah.
required, the town manager,
Yeah.
So then it doesn't conflict, then it's
Yeah.
one or the other.
Got it.
So it might even be the board review should probably be approval. In that sense. For which no select board approval is
Select board,
required.
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I have a request on,
That's a good question.
Okay.
on number 6. I agree with that, no select board review is required. Since we are liaisons to those committees, select board consultation, I mean, it's
But is
happening.
I think we
No,
should
it's-
leave that up to the town.
Well, the
That's
issue
town
is it's
manager,
not
but we're-
legal, I mean, it's not what's, it's not
It's
required.
not our
It's not
It's not
responsibility.
required, well, recommended.
No, it's
No,
not our
no,
responsibility.
no.
That's partly why we're having this conversation.
It's-
But we are making sure the town manager is notified the chair of the board about the appointment.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't mean that, I mean, I know I've sort of acknowledged with Carrie that, oh, there's an opening on the council on aging and here's a person, but it's really within Carrie's responsibility.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
So-
While we have this, while we're talking
Okay,
about.
can I give you an example? So recommendation passed by and I recommended that. Before that, I recommended the town manager that the town manager speak to that person.
Okay, yeah.
Because that was a specific recommendation. I don't, but, so, I just felt that was of value.
Yeah,
That-
Just
not part of the
keep
policy.
doing that, right,
It's not as.
Nothing precludes that,
nothing, right.
right?
Okay, doesn't have to, yeah.
Nothing precludes.
Yeah, no, you can do that,
We
yeah.
can do that.
For sure.
Okay, while we have APP open, I'd like to, can we talk, I support all these changes,
Yeah.
Wendy, I do. I just wanna talk with everyone here about something that's in section 3, the very last sentence, we're talking about term, it says accepted. So it's on page
Yeah.
2. Except in unusual circumstances, the chairmanship and the clerkship should rotate yearly among the committee membership.
Mhm.
In the boards that I'm the liaison to, this is something we've been lax about for sometimes really good reasons. So I'm wondering, is this something that we feel committed to and we're going to encourage our committees that we liaise to in fact make this
I
change?
think they should.
We set a good example on the select board, we rotate. So
It's a different story. No one said, I don't know
You're
what
right.
to do it.
That's- yeah.
So like,
But I
but if there's people there that are like, yeah, I'd like to, I'll do it. I think we should.
Well, but isn't the point that the committee should,
Share response.
look, evaluate, re-elect or re-elect chairs on an annual basis? I mean.
yes,
That's the process.
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
first part of section 3 says each committee shall annually elect from among its members.
yeah.
Which means that they should at least, even if they decide that one of these unusual circumstances exists, they should at least have a vote about it to
Right.
make sure that they're free, so that's a
And that's a good clarification.
that's a
About
shall,
that
not,
happens.
well,
Right.
that's a shall, so it should be happening, and I can think of a case, I'm not going to name it, where, it became important because of a committee, a majority of a particular committee wanted a change. And
You mean outside of the annual?
no, in an annual situation, and
Well, I guess this is saying though that the
Yeah.
committee should want, I mean, we're encouraging.
we're saying, yeah, but we're saying a little bit more than that, and that there should have, even if it should be unusual,
It
that
should be
it
unusual.
stays the same.
Yeah.
And at a minimum, even if it does stay the same,
You have to vote.
there has to be a
Yes,
vote
you shouldn't
every year
not-
about who the chair
Yeah, you shouldn't just not
is.
do it.
Yes,
Right.
that's,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we could agree that this is something that we want to encourage our boards and committees to do, and if we could mention it at like the chair's breakfast,
Yeah.
because this is our
That's
last
okay.
time,
Okay.
and I don't wanna be the only one asking.
I totally support it.
Getting on? All right, so that's not a change to this.
No, but I think
It's
that's
not a
great.
change, I just
Yeah,
wanted
yeah,
to
no,
discuss it, I wanted to point it out. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Right.
So can I make a motion to approve revision APP 10 as included in the meeting packet with this small revision that we made
Revision
to.
So moved. Oh, you moved it.
Is there a
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. The January 27th minutes addendum. I'm gonna share my screen. There were basically two changes in this packet that, compared to the addendum as appeared in our last meeting. And they were the, cover sheet that I said that I would create, which is included in the packet on, page 112, is that it? Thank you. And then there was the addition of some additional emails that were related primarily to open meeting law complaint number 3, which we had intended to put in the packet and they just got omitted, so they've been added here. And since this was published, I did receive some feedback about the cover sheet. And so I want to propose a couple of very minor changes to that, and I'll put them on the screen. So let me just do that. Pretty straightforward. So in number 6, on the following materials will be found, it says, number 6 read before Chair Howell's email to Ms. Reichman directing her to distribute the proposed amendment along with the Nexus document. It was pointed out to me that in that email, I had actually asked for a modification, and that modification to that proposed amendment was actually simply to change the date as it was because I knew that it wasn't going to be the 26th, so, you know, on the thought that if it were discussed, it would be appropriate for the date to be corrected. But it was directed to do that, and that, I think, at least contributed to some of the perception that was a proposed amendment coming from me. And, I thought it was important to include that. And the other, I deleted an asset distributions and added a period on number 7, just because I couldn't stand seeing the title. So,
Mark, can I make a comment on
Yes.
point number 3?
Yeah.
I think, and Carrie, remind me here, I think my recollection is for the first draft of the proclamation as originally drafted by board member Cameron McKenna and town manager Carrie LaFleur and distributed by Carrie.
That, sure.
I think that's what happened.
Yeah.
We drafted it, you then. I don't know.
Yeah.
If they're gonna number 8 for a second.
Yeah.
So there's more than this, the 2 inaccuracies there, so. Mr. Rose emailed to her citizen requested, I did not request talking points. If you look at it, I asked citizen specifically, why do people object to the IRA definition? And it was more of an explanation, clarification. It wasn't talking points. I wasn't asking for talking points. So it's really requesting clarifications. It was not talking points. Secondly, the distribution was not made by me, it was made by staff. So I'd like, those 2 changes reflect the accuracy of 8. One is that it's definitely various clarifications. The one talking points. And that the email, this distribution of that email by staff to the board, because I did not distribute that. Do you understand those changes? I'll make sure you're.
Yeah, I understand, and this doesn't. It, right now, the way it reads. Is requesting clarification and that person's response, and so it doesn't say anything about. Who distributed it, just said it's the record of the distribution is.
Well, it's similar to what Cameron did in number 3. With the I didn't send that email out. I requested that you send that.
Yes, and
Is it a nuance? Sure.
Well, put it this way, I would be more comfortable with language similar to what I put in number 6, which is directing her to distribute.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
Because I think that it's important for us to remain accountable for what we ask staff to do, and that they do on our behalf.
Agree.
That's fine.
All right.
Are you gonna make that?
I could,
Well,
I mean, I would be. Clarifications is fine, I understand that, I don't actually feel it's necessary.
Okay.
But, I. The first one, number 3, is exactly what we asked to have happen here when we put the task together. And that's what we did, the other one is just really this, this is just meant to. For somebody who hopefully, decides that they want to understand what this packet contains, this is a very rough guide for, for understanding what.
I agree. I found out in this whole matter, words matter.
Yes.
Words and interpretation of words matter. I think clear words matter. That's
Yeah.
Normally I would have said, sure, everybody understands that.
Yeah.
But I don't make sure it's clear.
Okay.
Okay,
So are we okay with it the way it reads right now? I mean,
Well, I'd be happy to see Riverbow ask that, as number 6. I sent an email directing, Ms. Reichman to.
subsequent request for distribution of that email to the board.
That's what happened.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah, perfect.
So I can make a motion to approve the amendment to the January 27 minutes by adding the addendum and the cover sheet as discussed this evening. Discussed in the box this evening.
Any further discussion?
Aye.
Okay.
All right, anything else?
Is there any comments or questions about the liaison reports?
I have an update because I didn't submit one that's an important one. The tax relief evaluation task force is not going to be prepared to present the report on the 13th.
Okay.
Now, if we're going to have a meeting the following week, I will ask if they can present. I
that
think they're
would be good.
very close to
That would
being
be
done,
good.
so I'll ask them to do that. The only other thing I'll just report is that both of the 40B projects are going to be presented to the CBA meeting on April 16th with what's identified as insubstantial changes to the applications. So they are proceeding, that's the message. They're making minor revisions, so that's good. And then the financial audit advisory committee will be meeting next week. And so maybe on the 16th, the next time we meet, we'll have a letter to the select board about the town's audit. Very straightforward.
The only thing I want to mention is that the BD Center is having
Yes,
an event this Thursday night at 6:30 at
Yep.
the BD to commemorate the 20th anniversary of when they started, so.
seems longer. I don't know.
Maybe not.
I just-
We're going to swim meets today.
It's 20 years, so 6:30.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll be there.
Just one thing on 2229 Main Street, so EPA presented,
Yeah.
I think a rather good description of cleanup. The news was that the site is probably not going to be ready for turning over to an owner until 2031.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Yours is 2029, so there's a year and a half delay.
Yeah.
Not due to funding, but due to the staff overload. I asked Bruce Thompson what's going on.
Yeah.
They couldn't dig the walls around the holding basin. This year they're delaying it a year. So for our planning, we have, we're not gonna be digging anything there until 2031 at the earliest.
Yeah. And just on the transportation advisory thing, I meant to poll are people available to join that joint meeting with the transportation advisory committee on the 14th at 9:30?
I do have a conflict,
Okay.
so, but I'm gonna see if I can change that.
I would be there.
But
I'm
it's gonna
sure
be
that,
recorded.
I'm sure that'll be recorded, but,
Okay.
I don't know yet.
all right, and I did send out a note that we did not have the executive session that we were hoping to have earlier today, but I am still hoping to be able to schedule that for next week's meeting. Is that,
Next Monday?
yeah, at 5 o'clock? Is that
When the
okay?
calendar's, yeah, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah,
13th.
that's fine.
that'd be the
5 o'clock.
13th. Yeah, and that's on the assumption that we'll have something to look at.
So it's fine.
5 o'clock on the 13th.
Good.
Okay. With that, I think we're ready to adjourn.
So moved.
9 o'clock on the button.
Very good.
Thank you for coming, everyone.